All right, good evening, everybody. We'll call this meeting to order. Today we have a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Cape May, New Jersey. We're here in the Cape May City Hall Auditorium. It is Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. The time is 2 minutes past 6 o'clock. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Under the Open Public Meetings Law, notice of this meeting was sent to the Cape May County Herald and the Press of Atlantic City, and a copy of the agenda was delivered to each member of City Council and posted on the Cape May City website and Cape May City Hall Bulletin Board. Notice is hereby provided that Cape May City Council meetings are audio recorded and video streamed live. Live video streams are posted to the Cape May City website. The City of Cape May is not responsible if audio recording or live video streaming of a meeting is unavailable. Roll call. Councilmember Baldwin?
Here.
Councilmember Meyer is absent. Mayor Mullock?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Here.
Councilmember Yeager?
Here.
City Solicitor Gillenschwartz?
Here.
City Manager Vall?
Here.
Deputy City Clerk Dillon?
Here.
And Deputy Manager Lou Belasco is also present. Council, any additions or deletions for this evening? I do have one, if you're interested, Mayor.
The addition of 14605.
Yes, we have 14605, 2022. This is a resolution of the City Council authorizing the change fund for the beach tag department. If you'd like to have a motion to add that to the agenda.
I'm sorry, what did you?
I'm sorry, would you like to have a motion to add that
I'd
to
make
the
a motion
agenda?
to add that.
Would you like to add it to the consent or regular agenda?
I'm fine with the consent.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullock?
Yes.
Any other additions or deletions, Council?
Anything else, Council?
All right. Next, we have the updates from the City Manager and City Solicitor.
City Manager, any updates this evening?
Caught me off guard there a minute. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'll be brief because I've asked, and you've also talked with our Public Works Director to give us an update on all the things we've been doing. Every meeting I praise our Public Works Department because nothing we don't ask for that doesn't get done. Matter of fact, the most recent hire we have is a guy that does electrical work, and so it's helping us in that area. We can do the concrete, we do the carpentry, the plumbing. We've got talented people there. So Eric's going to come up in a minute, Mayor, and give you an update what's going on here. Excuse me. As you know, we work with the fire chief to advertise for some part-time firefighters, volunteer firefighters. We are getting applications. The water and sewer bills, I don't know if it's going to make people happy, but they can now be paid online. So you don't have to come in here and pay them or mail your check. Traffic study was complete, and Mr. Orlando's here. He'll touch on that. Firehouse update. Ladies and gentlemen, if you looked at the firehouse, it's coming along really nice. It's kind of looking like a firehouse now. We're seeing the windows and the inside structure coming together. Oktoberfest, we met with the Chamber to work out the details for their Oktoberfest. So we'll be updating once we meet with them again to finalize. We met with the police chief and other principals to make sure that this year's Oktoberfest, we work at whatever issues there may have been. The new sheds that we purchased, I touched in the past about the tacky metal storage boxes on the beach. We just put all new sheds on the beach. They look beautiful. There's one out back also for the golf carts for the police department and the golf cart for City Hall. HPC application submitted and approved on the solar panels. And I guess that's just a quick update. Let's see what we have here on the back.
Mr. Vall, I have a couple questions for you.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure when we put those sheds on the beach, we did get all the permits that were necessary?
There are sheds, our beach. So what permits do we need?
Well, we usually need, I thought we need like DEP approval or CAFA.
It's
No.
all taken care of.
We got that approval?
Yes, there's no issues at all. It's the same thing as if we continue to put those metal cargo containers down there. There's no
Well,
difference.
I thought why I say that is because I thought the metal was kind of like temporary, but the wood is a little bit bigger.
No,
so that's why
they're
we-
temporary too, because they can be moved, excuse me, in the wintertime. They could be strapped up, as we just placed them, they could be removed and put down in Public Works for the winter,
We are going to remove the wooden sheds for the winter?
if we have to.
Okay.
The Promenade Paving today, we should be excited. That's done, it's completed. It's a great job. Council offered to put forward to widen that promenade. That's been paved today. We're working on the Memorial Day celebration to honor our veterans that given the ultimate for our country. And we're cleaning the town up, and you're going to hear from Eric in a minute, the way we're getting ready for summer, between all the concerts, cleaning the community up, doing intersection striping where we can. We just feel real good about it.
Yeah, one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
Concerning Oktoberfest. I know last year we shut down like Beach Drive, and it seemed to be a lot of,
That's one thing,
I
Deputy
would
Mayor,
maybe-
we're addressing, and I don't think it's going to be an issue this year because I don't think that's going to happen.
we're not going to shut down Beach Drive.
It's not fully complemented yet, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager. And City Solicitor?
I don't have anything to report, Mayor.
No?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, I do have a proclamation this evening for someone special with us. And I'll come up here. A couple weeks ago, I was going by the water tower and looking at what really is kind of Cape May's last farm, right underneath the water tower, and seeing some of the local women who were planting seeds. I just thought it was really special, and I know people love seeing the flowers, so this proclamation is for Nina, and I'm excited to give this. Whereas Maximina Castarillo, most known as Nina, or more commonly, the Zanina Lady of Cape May. Did I say the flower word right? Zanina? Okay, I should have Googled that. Zanita, Lady of Cape May, has been a resident of the city of Cape May for 30 years. And whereas Miss Castarillo traveled to Cape May from the Philippines to support her daughter, Angie Hammer, and to help raise and care for her grandchildren. And whereas given her years of experience handling and growing tropical plants and flowers in the Philippines, her expertise was requested by Lou and Carol Elwell to assist in attending to the flower garden located at 716 Madison Avenue at the base of the water tower. And whereas over the last 30 years, Mrs. Castarillo directed her passion and knowledge in tending the garden and providing stunning bouquets to locals and visitors alike. And now therefore, I, Zachary Moloch, Mayor of the City of Cape May, hereby recognize Mrs. Maximina Castarillo for her efforts in beautifying the City of Cape May and bringing joy to everyone who has ever received one of her personalized bouquets. Thank you very much. Oh, a picture? Okay. Anyone, come on up.
We're getting everybody in this. Yeah. We're going to get a bunch.
You want to get in the picture? Good night. Smile. That's a great picture. All right.
You, unless you want to stay, and you're welcome to go get some dinner. Thank you so much.
And Mayor, next up, we do have the city engineer report from Mr. Orlando.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for helping plant seeds for another beautiful season this year, everybody. Thank you. Mr. Orlando, good evening. That's it.
About time.
Yeah, it is about time.
Well, Mike kind of hit the highlight of today.
Mr. Orlando, if you wouldn't mind bringing that microphone a little closer for us, please.
Am I good?
Just closer, so we can hear you on the recording. Thank you.
How's that, a little better? We paved the promenade today. Last week, we installed the conduit. Conduit got connected to the building.
That's awesome.
Contractors really worked together well.
Well
And
well ahead of Memorial Day.
well ahead of Memorial Day.
It's great.
Manager Vole was behind me with a whip. But it came out well. I stopped there before I attended tonight's meeting, and I'm very pleased with the outcome.
Yeah.
As also indicated, the firehouse is under construction. We've been doing inspections as needed. We have been asked to relocate the generator back to the original position. Mr. Belasco sent me an email earlier today, and we'll complete that probably in the next 2 days to make sure that it can be situated in such a manner that won't interfere with the parking. Because the original generator was a little smaller than the one proposed, so I have a little bit of concern, but we'll vet that out in the next day or so.
About that generator, because I know you were originally going to move it to another area, and it had to do with the size of it. Would it be beneficial if, because you said it's going to have to be a little bit bigger than the other one, if we put 2 generators in and like position that way, one,
I don't know the
as
answer
a
to
backup,
that question,
not
Deputy
backup,
Mayor. Whether or not 2 smaller generators would be equated to 1. We'd inspect the generator. So I think the first order of business would be to, let's see if we could fit the generator closer to the firehouse, make sure that the adequate distances are maintained. And if we can't, we may have to look at alternatives. We may have to turn it, instead of being perpendicular to the building, we may have to make it parallel to the building, losing a few more parking spaces. But we'll address that as soon as I could put pencil to paper.
Yeah, that's why, instead of maybe losing parking, if we had 2 smaller ones, one on maybe either side of the building, that it would maybe.
I do not know the answer to that question. I know that the 2 generators would have to be in close proximity to each other because of the power source. So,
Okay.
Welcome Center, we're still waiting for final approval from New Jersey Transit, but we have embarked on completing the drawings to either go out to bid or to negotiate with the current low bidder, Marandino Construction. Fortunately, because the New Jersey Transit required us to maintain the rails, it's very similar to the design that was completed by Mott McDonald a number of years ago. I'm not particularly fond of keeping the rails because of the sustainability of the facility, because those rails are going to allow moisture in it, and I do have a concern. However, it's the only way we get to pave it. So we're in the process of final design. I would think that probably by the end of the month that we'll be complete and be able to either negotiate with Marandino, look at their numbers, or put it re-advertise for bids.
Now, we still have that material, correct?
All we have are the lights.
Oh, I was under the impression that we were given the blacktop, all that stuff was, or the other,
The only,
besides the lights, I thought there was other material that was delivered that we were storing.
my understanding, and I know that my project manager spoke with, I believe, Eric, to come down and take a look at the lights. But I think that's all we have.
Eric's up next. and-
Yeah.
Well, why don't we just touch on it when you
Oh,
get up?
okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Matt did call you, right? And I think, yeah.
Yeah, because I was under the impression from Shane Meyer that was here when it was bid out, that we had that material delivered.
I believe it's the only lights, but Eric may know better than I. I do not know that. Lafayette,
We also paid them, I think, a certain amount.
I think you paid, as far as you could tell through the vouchers, I believe the only thing that were paid for were the lights for the job, for Marandino.
I'm only saying Shane because he was here when it went all through.
I'm sure that, as we start to unravel what was previously done, we'll be able to make a determination what was paid for to the contractor.
Yeah, I just hate for us to pay for something we already paid for once. That was.
Yeah. like I said, I know that Public Works is in possession of the lights, and we want to go out and view them just to make sure that the lights that were spec'd are the lights that are going to be installed, so that we make sure that the photometrics work for that area. The Lafayette Street Park, we're currently under design. I think we're at a point now where the CAFR permit is about to be released by the DEP. Mr. Vertella indicated to me that that is forthcoming. We'll have to amend that CAFR permit because we're changing the plans. But I think it's going to be a minor amendment because all we're doing is reshuffling the improvements. We're not adding anything new under the park phase of this application.
Real quick with the park, because I know that the plans have changed numerous times. Is there still a fountain in there?
There is. So after the last meeting, Deputy Mayor, I did send copies to the clerk and to the administrator to make sure that they could be disseminated to the governing body.
Okay, because I did see one design at one time, and it looked like the bathrooms were right in the front. Is there any way that we can put the bathrooms, instead of being the focal point, maybe putting the bathrooms off to the side, so you're not, when you look at the court, you're not just seeing the bathrooms right behind the fountain?
We could. I mean, it's a matter of making sure that all the elements fit in a concise, a good manner. Moving those bathrooms, I do have it behind the fountain.
Right, yeah, so it's kind of like, you're looking at the fountain and you see a bathroom.
Right. There could be another location, and I'd be happy to explore those locations with whoever's deemed necessary as far as the governing body. I'll be happy to take direction. Beach Avenue Promenade is complete. Mr. Vole, Mr. Blasco asked me to put together a proposal to change out the lights. So our office will produce a proposal. The good thing is that the conduit is now on the ground, so that any changes to addition of lights or arches or anything, we do have that conduit, so the asphalt is not going to have to be ripped up. So what will happen is, I've spoken with the electrical contractor who will probably bid the project, but what they'll do is they'll cut the asphalt in the same diameter as the sonotube. They'll bore down. We have accurate dimensions where the conduit is. The conduit was placed in such a manner that it's contiguous. So where we decide where the final placement of the lights, they'll cut the conduit, they'll bring it up into the sonotube, and very little disturbance to the asphalt, if any.
That's great. It looks awesome, by the way. It really does.
I'm very happy with the final product. The Seawall Design, I know that proposals have been submitted to Mr. Belasco. I don't know the status of those proposals for that project.
That was another thing. We haven't finished phase 1 of that proposal, and I think this is phase 2 that you're looking at to do?
Correct.
So don't you think we should finish phase 1 before we go to phase 2?
Well, we're going to need an engineer one way or another. So the proposals are to pick up a coastal engineer that can assist in completing phase 1 and finish phase 2.
Right.
I expect to have those before council for their consideration very shortly.
Because I think that was the thing I brought up last time we talked about this, that council didn't approve anything going out to bid. And I think everything should be going through council before it goes out to bid.
Well, this is just RFPs. We got RFPs for the engineering services. This isn't anything to do with any
It's
construction.
not a bid, it's really a request for proposals. And
Right, but usually all requests for proposals go through council for approval to go out, so that
And-
we can verify it. I had asked Erin at the last time we had talked about this if she had received anything, and she said no, because of advertisement. How do you advertise if you don't have a resolution associated with the RFP?
We've already, at the beginning of this year and last year, we established, my recollection is we established a engineer pool that was the people that we wanted to reach out to. We submitted proposals at that time for people to be put on that list. In addition, like for professional services, I've seen the city manager's office go out and get proposals, and that may find its way. They usually present the most advantageous proposal to council when we have professional services contract, but it's not like a construction contract where you're required to go out to bid. But we've kind of set up that process to try and get the best people at the best price for these jobs when they come in. And council established that for the second year in a row in 2020.
Right, but my
2022,
point is, we haven't finished everything we're supposed to with Phase 1. We didn't, that was supposed to be like a design phase, and that was when we had, I think we gave it to Mott McDonald's group to do that, and I was on that committee that we met to do that Phase 1, and they were supposed to do a design, and in that design, they need HPC and the state's SHPO approval with that also. And I'm saying, why are we going forward to looking for an engineer when we haven't figured out a design yet? I'm thinking we should look at a design before we go to Phase 2 and make sure we have everything we need.
We need to let FEMA know who our engineer on this project is for the grant that we received for this. They need to, we've asked twice for it to be held up while we sought bids, or not bids, RFPs from engineering firms in and explained to FEMA that we had a transition. We moved from Mott McDonald, and we're seeking other proposals. If we don't have an engineer in line, we risk losing this grant, and the whole project's becoming much, much more expensive if it is to be pursued.
I'm not saying that, but I just thought we should go from Phase 1 to Phase 2. If we don't have anything finished from Phase 1, how can you start Phase 2? That was my
I always
question.
thought that the idea was when the Army Corps got approval from SHPO and the HPC on the design of their wall, we could copy their design instead of going through the entire process. You have an approved SHPO HPC wall going up at Wilmington, which they have gotten approval for, so why would we not match that wall?
Well, they're actually, because the one at the end is higher than the one that's going to be going across the boardwalk.
No, but the
extension.
design, you're talking about the design. The
Right,
design would
but
be
the
same, it's
design
just
and the height
one's-
is going to be different because of the fact that, we can make that one wider because we're going to make it in a boardwalk going down, right? We're extending the boardwalk down with the seawall, was the whole idea for Phase 1. The wall at Baltimore was just a wall. It wasn't extension of the boardwalk. So they were going to be different. And it's my understanding that unless there was meetings that I didn't know about, that the Army Corps wasn't approved by SHPO yet.
Yes, it has been,
Oh, it has been?
yes.
Okay. If you could send that to me, that information, I'd appreciate it.
Well, it may be advantageous, because I know that Mott McDonald did some preliminary drawings for Phase 1, which were actually part of the RFP that you sent out. And I thought that it was to take the finalization of Phase 1 and then blend it into Phase 2. And quite frankly, I had no expertise in coastal engineering. That's why, after talking to the administration, I said, let's bid this out, or let's get some RFPs from other engineers qualified. I'd be happy to sit in on those meetings, but it's beyond my expertise.
Okay.
Pennsylvania Avenue Road reconstruction, the plans and specification have been completed. The next step is to seek DOT approval, because that's a DOT-funded job. Actually, we were doing our in-house peer review on that project. I would think that they'll go to DOT probably the first of next week. DOT's taking about 30 days to review and approve this. So my guess is that we'll do the bidding, I'll come back to the city council, ask for a tabulation committee, seek bid dates. I'll work with your clerk on effectuating that. And I think it would be best suited that we would do the construction shortly after Labor Day. I don't think that we want to undertake a paving project on Pennsylvania Avenue before Labor Day. So we're well ahead schedule with that process. As I reported last time, Kiwanis Park did receive a grant from DCA. The surveyors are actually out there this week completing the survey, and then at that point, there'll be a design phase, which I would assume that council would have some of its members kind of develop into a committee to look at the elements. Obviously, the main thrust of this is to be an ADA-compatible park. So some of the elements that are very important for the grant is to have ADA-compatible bathrooms, ADA-compatible surface, which will be a rubberized surface, ADA-compatible play equipment, and any type of walkways that will be ADA-compatible. So the whole emphasis, while the park will be improved, it really launches the American Disabilities Act.
Yeah, and again, with that, the plan I saw before, the bathroom was like in the center of the park. Can we put the bathroom like maybe where they are now, those portable ones, only off to the side, so you're not looking at the park and seeing, you know,
Yeah.
a
That
bathroom?
was really just kind of a concept plan.
It was, and I just wanted to make sure that, because it seems like bathrooms are always becoming the focal point of these plans. I just want to make sure, you know, that they're not.
As you get older, you got to have them closer too. And the last project I want to report on is the water transmission line. The survey and wetlands were completed. The design is probably pretty much complete. We did receive word from the DEP that a CAFR permit is not needed for the application, and that the only thing that we need, since we're in the transition area of wetlands, that will need a general permit, I think is 10 for the application, which, in my opinion, will kind of streamline this process. So I would anticipate that all the approvals for this will be completed, I'm going to say probably within 4 to 6 months for the wetlands transition area waiver, which is a general permit. So other than that, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and Council, if they have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I just have one question. It had to do with the bill pay. I saw a bill pay for the traffic study that was completed for New Jersey and Elmira Street for $7,000. I guess my concern about the bill was the fact that council had already paid $5,000 for a complete study to be done at Broad Elmira for a traffic study, and we redid it now for an incomplete one. Because the study that was done, it was drafted, and it said incomplete, that they would have to do it during the peak season so they get proper counts.
So they was marked as a draft. We had a meeting recently with the traffic engineer from Shropshire Associates, myself, Mr. Blasco, the chief, and Mike Voll, the city manager. We brought to his attention that of the counts and of the fact that it is a draft study. He's going to rectify that, because he wanted to meet with us to talk about the study of what our intentions were. So when I very rarely try not to engage other professionals because I take their liability on, but I did engage them because it was an important element. I paid their bill probably 2 months ago when I got that study. So if council feels that they want to hold that bill until they get the completed study, I'm fine with.
But why are we doing a completed study when we don't want to put, we already did a completed study for Broad and Elmira, so we're
Okay.
paying for it twice.
I'm not
basically.
aware of the Broad and Myers study.
Yeah, we did Mount McDonald probably 2 years ago. We did a complete study, went over a couple months. They charged us $5,000. So now we're going to pay for another study that we already did. And why would we go and do a complete study for New Jersey Avenue when I think it was council's opinion that we don't want to put stop signs there? And matter of fact, you know, they're even saying the stop signs aren't what we do. So I just don't understand, because we had talked, and you weren't here at the last meeting, but we had talked about putting in some calming, traffic calming, you know.
Which were recommended as part of the study.
Right, which to me was a preliminary study, which wasn't, I don't think, worth $7,000. That was just my opinion.
So the proposal came in. I sent the proposal to administration. They approved it, and the study was done. That was exactly what was requested of the contractor, to study those 4 intersections for 4-way stops. They actually took it a little bit deeper to talk about other things that they could do for traffic calming. So the protocol for them was to see if the traffic warranted 4-way stops. That was my proposal with them. That was it. It was nothing else. Obviously, the warrants weren't there for the 4-way stops, I believe. But they did go through and say, here's some other things that you can do for traffic calming. And after the meeting that we had the other day, I think it was discussed that we're going to do striping at all 4 intersections to provide for pedestrian crossings. And maybe at some future time, think about the bump outs that would help traffic. There was some talk about flashing stop signs in some areas, which would help increase visibility. But the study was exactly what was asked for. So if there was a disconnect between city council and my office,
Well,
Yeah.
it never came before council for approval, or council would have said that we had already done the traffic study. So I think there's some little bit of commu-
It is required by the state for some of these.
But this isn't incomplete. So the study, the reason we're putting on the agenda this week to have a 4-way stop done at Broad and Elmira was because there was a complete study done by Mott McDonald a few years ago. We probably couldn't use the study that was done by them because it wasn't complete.
I think you can, because they estimate the traffic volume. They have multipliers that they do when they take their traffic volume. And I think the warrants, they did say in the report that the warrants were there for Elmira.
Right.
But you know, according to the last traffic study, they had to do it during the peak season and weekend and over, I think it's over an 8-hour period. And they only did it over, I think, an hour.
I
on
don't
their
know the
study.
answer to that because I'm not a traffic expert.
Well, it was in their report.
Yeah.
And I had, you know.
Okay.
So
If I may, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council, we're going to continue to study. First and foremost to all of us is public safety. And we've had people complain about different intersections, so I've asked for us to look at it. And also, since we met the other day, the chief and I and Vince and the traffic engineer are looking at some other areas that really need 4-way stops. It was a Pennsylvania and what was the other intersection where they want to put the 4-way flashing stop signs and all to make it safer because we're having a lot of accidents
It
there.
was Philadelphia and Delaware going into.
Yes, you're
That's
right.
when we had
Right.
suggested.
As
here.
far as Mott's study, I wasn't aware of that, what was done back then, but I can assure you that we're trying to do the best thing we can to protect the people that travel throughout this community. I just got a long email today, I think the mayor had a copy today also, and the chief, from other people concerned about the speed in our community. Things are really changing right now. One guy said that we think 20 miles an hour should be in our community, and he was referring to state DOT. What DOT said it's really a local decision. At that point, they only regulate 25, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. But public safety is a concern. I mean, things are changing. We got the golf carts. We got these motorized bicycles now. We have a lot of things that are more complex that we want to make sure that people are safe when they're in this community. I know at the last meeting, you had a consensus about the stop signs. I know that. But we had a meeting afterwards, not going against what council
Well, it
said.
sounds like you're going against council. I mean,
Wait a
I
sec.
thought it
Wait,
was
wait,
the
wait.
idea.
Okay, we're going to talk one at a time, and we're going to talk respectfully. But let me just say this. Both of these studies on Elmira and New Jersey were started by the public asking for them, okay? That's number one. The public asked for these studies to see if we should put stop signs in or not. We all got a letter with over 50 signatures from people on Elmira Street that want a stop sign on a corner of Elmira and and Broad, rather. We had 5 people consensus to put a stop sign there at the last council meeting. Now, these engineer studies, while none of us like to pay these bills, are done by every community in the country. We have to do them. So, you know, if the study says don't put a stop sign, then that's the study. If the study says put a stop sign, then that's the study. It's not a waste of money. We have to do it by state law. And frankly, they did a good job because they basically agreed with what council said. Don't put stop signs, but you could use calming measures and things like that on New Jersey Avenue. So I think we're having a big discussion here on something we already came to an agreement on, and we should pay the bill because they did a good job.
Well, my point, Zach, is we paid for a study to be done twice, and the second time it was incomplete. And now I'm hearing from Mr. Vole that I don't care what council thinks, we're going to go ahead and do this traffic study, which I thought we had already come to the conclusion that we don't want to put stop signs up. So why are we continuing to go down that path?
So I haven't authorized Shropshire Associates to do any continuation of the studies. All I asked him to do is finalize the report that he's provided. And he's under contract for $7,000.
Okay. There's a lively discussion on the stop signs on New Jersey Avenue, which we had come to a conclusion to at the last meeting, but I appreciate it. Next agenda item.
I'm done.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Orlando.
you,
And I will
Vince.
say, our bills in engineering are down maybe close to a third of what they used to be, and that is because of a lot of your hard work. So I thank you for it.
No, you're welcome. And it's a pleasure working for the city. I'm actually enjoying it. I mean, I was a little reluctant, I think, at first because I do a lot of private work here.
Right.
But the public work has been enjoyable, and it's been a pleasure working with everybody. I do
Thank
enjoy it.
We
We
appreciate
enjoy
it.
working with you.
Vince, you're
Thank
doing a
you.
great job. We appreciate you're always available when
Thanks.
I call. Thank you.
We have my cell number, too, so.
Thank
Nice
you.
evening, everyone.
Thanks.
Good night, Vince.
Thank you.
Before we get to the next agenda item, I did want to get to our city engineer's report, but I do want to have a moment of silence in honor of the lady who was struck and unfortunately passed away over the weekend, as I'm sure most of you are aware, rather. And also in honor of Harvey Williams, who recently passed. So if I could just have a moment of silence for just a moment, please. Thank you very much. And I think it's appropriate on Harvey Williams. Anyone who knew him, I think he was 96 years old, 95 or 96. And I was reading his obituary today. I did want to highlight a couple quick ones. I mean, it was long because he lived a very interesting and a cool life here in Cape May. But born on Washington Street, he graduated from Cape May High School here in this building in 1944. And then enlisted in the U.S. Navy. He served until 1946, of course, during the World War II. Harvey returned to Cape May the following year and started to work at the Cape May Post Office right here on Washington Street. Following high school, he then went on to the post office in Cape May Courthouse, was promoted to postmaster, came back to Cape May. Most people knew him as the ice cream man in the city of Cape May, selling popsicles, snow cones, pretzels, and bubble gum all over the city. He spent time after retirement from the post office working as a salesperson at Soul Needles Real Estate Agency, and then he went on and became the Cape May City Emergency Manager Director for 22 years, and then on as the Cape May City firefighter as a volunteer for 65 years. He became the Kiwanis Club president, and it could go on and on and on. But I think I share in honoring Harvey and his dedication to the city on behalf of City Council. Next on the agenda, we have Eric Berzinski,
Yep.
our Department of Public Works Superintendent. Please join us if you would. Thank you, Eric.
So just touching base on what's going on.
Closer.
Yeah.
Bring it
Touching
nice and
base-
close. You can move it. No worries. Thank you.
Got it. So touching base on what DPW done over the past 6 months. We all know the two crazy snowstorms in the beginning of the season. We remodeled the dispatch and police and the welcome area there. We did an annual refinishing of the convention hall floor from roller skating.
Really looks,
Takes a beating.
yeah, looks good.
The new landscaping and fix-it stations down in Convention Hall with the 4 LSV parking spots, not golf carts. Remodeling the Nature Center to bring it up to building code and ADA codes
It
for
really
the
looked,
Pelican Place.
I saw it the other day, Eric. Really,
Yeah.
kudos to your staff
Yeah, it
on
came
that.
out
Really
great.
Looks great.
We cut back the overgrowth on the promenade that overhangs the walking path to make a safe walking path for the public. We started cleaning and sanitizing the beaches for the summer season, which is next week, if not today.
Finally.
If not today.
Finally, yeah.
I'm sure everybody's seen it, but we're updating the exterior of the Ocean Street restroom
Yeah,
to get rid of the
and it
rocket
needed it.
cedar shakes.
It needed it.
Yeah. The city manager touched base on the storage containers. Now that we have garages on the beach.
It's great. Got rid of the shipping containers.
Working with the city engineer with the Kiwanis Park, he touched base. And touch base back on his thing with the Welcome Center, we do have 14 20-foot pipes, 3 fittings, 3 basin grates, 7 light posts, 14 light heads and parts on DPW stock
Okay, that's
for that
great.
project.
For the Welcome Center.
I'm sorry, what was the first part? Did you have any besides the lights?
We have 14 20-foot lengths of pipe,
Oh, pipe, okay.
yep, 3 fittings and 3 of the basin grates for storm drains.
And there was no, like, I don't know. I was in the impression that they had delivered like asphalt or something before.
Nah.
Okay.
Nope. And we actually picked that stuff up in Egg Harbor from the people that were holding it. And with the guidance of the bike committee, we started updating and installing the crosswalks, stop bars, one-way street arrows, and hopefully start working on the bike sharrows
That's great,
around town.
great.
And then the most exciting news for this year, that City of Cape May will be installing the ADA beach mats on every beach entrance in the city,
That's awesome.
not just certain beaches.
That's great.
So that's all I got to update for today.
Eric, you want to touch on some of the projects we have lined up for the winter, fall?
Yes, I do have a couple projects that it would council's approval that we like to, Public Works like to do ourselves. Would be replacing some of the rotten deck and railings on Patterson and Mount Vernon beach ramp.
Anyone have a problem with that? I'm good with it.
The front wall of Convention Hall, that the tiles that are deteriorating, falling off, it's bad.
Yeah,
So the problem with that is I think there's water getting behind it.
yeah.
And it's rotten out the back. And then the big project I'd like to work with somebody would be updating some of the showers to make them more ADA accessible and
That's great.
easier to get to on the beachfront.
Great.
When we had talked about, my Buildings and Grounds Committee a while ago had talked about that they could be, one of the problems with some of the bathrooms down by, I think it's Philadelphia Avenue, the beach, a lot of people are going in those bathrooms to change. And they were thinking, I think I brought this up to your attention too, that they had suggested putting up temporary changing rooms in the back of those bathrooms that would alleviate some of the congestion that is in the bathrooms, that people could change outside behind, they would be portable. And,
Is that something we could look at, Eric?
We
Have
could
our-
look into it,
Have our
yeah.
carpenters take a look at that?
Absolutely.
yeah, there's at a couple of those bathrooms, so, because they said a lot of the issues are, there's only, I think, 2 stalls. People go in there to
Yes.
change, and then there's a line for the women to try to get in
We
into
could
the
look into
bathrooms.
that, definite.
Great.
And then my other question was, the sign as you're going north on Lafayette Street, and I think it's at Sydney, is that Sydney?
Yes.
That people keep taking it down. So when you come into town, there usually was a sign up that told you beaches, Coast Guard base. Is that going back up anytime soon?
As far as I understand, it's county. I did reach out to Bob Church,
Okay.
and he did put a work order in for it to go up. In the meanwhile, we installed a one-way arrow, which got taken out anyway, again.
Yeah, I know,
So-
because it's dangerous for people
Yeah.
that don't realize that that road kind of ends.
The, on that, I know Bob Church did email us about some of the potential speed bumps coming, not speed bumps, but the kind of the, like at the base of the bridge. like we
Calming.
Talked about, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the thicker lines that could kind of get people to slow down, a rumble strip, right, that's it. So for the county's project, which is Lafayette Street.
Yes.
They're going to include that in that
Perfect.
project.
I just want to be concerned, my one concern about putting a rumble strip is the noise. And that I'm worried about people that live close are going to be hearing that constant rumble. And I don't know if that's something we,
Yeah, I don't know what the noise will come off of that.
Well, but that'll have to be dealt with the county.
Yeah, with the county, with Bob. That's all I got.
Eric, the city looks great. You
Thanks.
guys are doing a really, really wonderful job.
and I just want to give a really big shout out to you for the Fisher's Memorial, when we had that ceremony, that it looked beautiful. It
Thanks.
really did. The flowers were in bloom. We couldn't have timed it any better.
It really was
Yeah.
nice.
They
Yeah.
it really looked great.
We got,
Great
we
job.
got a good group of guys down there at DPW.
Yeah.
So,
Great job.
you're welcome.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Eric. Okay.
Next, Mayor, we have some discussions and presentations, if you'd like to move forward. We have the Stockton Coastal Research Center on next.
Dr. Farrell? Dr. Farrell, thank you for joining us. Thank you for asking. My pleasure. If you could just turn on the microphone right there. Perfect.
And bring it nice and close, please.
From Mr. Belasco, I got the idea that you wanted some questions, or do you want a summary of what we're planning to do and how it evolved?
Dr. Farrell, I'm
Could you
sorry,
give
could
us
you-
a summary? And just, if you could move the microphone.
Yeah, just bring it a
Okay,
bit closer.
that
Thank
better?
you.
Just a quick summary of.
All right. Well, the story actually goes back to 1989 when the Army Corps started its first ever in New Jersey joint complex of beach nourishment with the state of New Jersey and the local communities to start putting sand on the beach. We were here in 1986 setting up a series of survey lines following Hurricane Gloria in 1985 when FEMA denied all recovery funding because the state couldn't prove the losses. They had no data. And so Senator Bradley at the time put an earmark together for a DEP to come up with a means of quantifying changing beach conditions throughout the state. And we at Stockton set that up in 1986, and we set up 3 sites in Cape May City, the Beach Club, Baltimore Avenue, and down by the Terminal Groin at, I guess it's Broadway. So, and then there's one in the Nature Conservancy just south of the boundary with the city. So those have been surveyed twice a year for 35 years. In 2016, previous Mahaney administration asked us to augment those sites with additional survey positions to cover each separate groin compartment between the rock structures that segment the beach into basically separate cells. And we essentially said, okay, starting at the Nature Conservancy, we came to the cove and set up 6 lines 200 feet apart that cross the beach and go into the water to approximately 4 foot of water to see what happens south of that terminal rock groin, because that's where the dramatic changes seem to occur. In 2020, the Army Corps harvested sand off of the Nature Conservancy beaches and moved 75,000 yards up to the cove in January and February of 2020. They also hauled 50,000 yards to Cape May Point from the same source. So those sites, now, right now, the Nature Conservancy site is cordoned off for bird nesting. Lines 10 and 8 in the cove are also cordoned off for active bird sites marked off for piping plovers. And the other one, there's an active oyster catcher nest at Beach Avenue east of 2nd Street. And that's also roped off for the oyster catchers. And they will defend their nest. They'll dive bomb you if you come too close. So CMC 2 is in front of 2nd Street. The one I'm talking about, the South Broadway and 1st Avenue, has been there for 35 years. Then there's, going north, Grant Avenue, or Grant Street. The next one is Congress Street and Perry Street. Between those two, perpendicular to Beach Avenue, over the dunes into the water to a depth of about 14 feet of water, so that we're covering any offshore bars that tend to appear. The next one is Beach Avenue and Ocean Street, in front of the Marquis de Lafayette Motel. And then perpendicular to Beach Avenue between Jefferson and Queen Street, 912 Beach Avenue is our landmark. The next one is Beach Avenue between Madison and Philadelphia. The Periwinkle Inn Motel is the reference location. And then Baltimore Avenue and Beach Avenue is one of the old ones that's been there since 1986. I surveyed that as a younger person back in the 1980s, and it involved at that time climbing over the seawall, picking the flattest rock and hoping there was sand in front of me in the water. Wow. So I left the rocks into the water, and maybe we went out 150 feet before it was over my head. Wow. I had 70 pounds of lead wrapped around me, so I stayed on my feet. What was optical transit? This was before the electronics had come, and we had a stadia pole and an optical transit set up on the seawall.
Wow.
So I got to do the swimming. So I fondly remember Baltimore Avenue pre-Beachville, because in 1989, that's when the sand arrived, and now it's like 475 feet from where I went in the water
Wow.
to the high tide line on that profile. And then finally, the beach club at the Cape May Beach Club starts in their property and comes across as the northernmost site. It's about 200 feet from the boundary with the Coast Guard station property, and we're not allowed to survey on their site. So there is no, we just take pictures. That's about it. So that process started in the spring of 2016, and our goal was to provide a cohesive view of all the beaches in town on at least a 1,000-foot increment. Yes, you could do them more closely spaced, but when the Corps pays the contractor for placing the sand, they do the profiles on 100-foot spacing, and of course there are hundreds of them. The cost of doing that on a regular basis is kind of prohibitive and unnecessary. We essentially figure that with these 10 sites, we can pretty well tell you what's going on. We're doing it twice, so we cover the summer accretion, if it occurs, and then we cover the situation with the winter storms. Unfortunately, we did them May 4th, 12th, and 13th. Mother's Day had an effect. And the only thing we could do would be kind of repeat them, but that's, again, your call if you feel it necessary. I don't know what the damage was because I haven't been down there to look today. But I do know that Avalon and Stone Harbor took a beating. In some cases, there's a scarp in the dunes in Avalon, and the beach is flat and very narrow in Stone Harbor. Now, as far as the beach nourishment program is concerned, the next beach maintenance scheduled is in the fall of 2023, as far as I know, because I talk to the project managers are well known to us because we have lots of conversations with Eric Rourke and Patel and the rest of them up there in the Philadelphia district. So we coordinate with them as to when they're going to do maintenance, and we try to be here and do the surveys after they're finished because they will give us the pre-construction data they collect with their contractors, and so that we can then compare how much actual sand was put on the beach for the individual community.
Gotcha.
Other than that, the other aspects of the 2016 work we did were tied in with the beach safety issues that evolved in that era and apparently continue. Those parts of it were set aside in this application and proposal, but they can be looked at. We had a program where we gave forms to the lifeguards, and they daily measured the wave period, the approach direction, and estimated from the pilings on the storm drain outfalls the wave heights. Okay. So if they took that, there was an interest in doing that, see, we don't have to do it, but they do.
Right.
And this is, there's a clipboard and a piece of paper on a daily basis for them to put the information for their station. It's just their own local beach, and you have it, however many stations you have, that many pieces of paper arrive daily, which then we have our student workers go through and collate and come up with a history of the summertime wave heights, approach directions, and wave periods. All of that goes together to how much energy is in the waves that are striking the coastline at any given time. That's a very small cost operation in terms of your lifeguards are on duty. They sit there with a clipboard, spend 20 minutes doing it first thing in the morning, and it's over. And then we get a bunch of paper, and the kids get paid $12.50 an hour, and it gets put into a spreadsheet, and
Okay.
we do that. That's something we could implement again. We did it in 2016, but we did not talk about it in this particular proposition. But that's the only add-on that I can think of that makes a whole lot of instantaneous sense a week from
Okay.
Memorial Day.
That's great. We'll have to talk about that, but I think that's an interesting discussion, I think, yeah.
Yeah, we did it before, and I suspect some of the guards are still,
Yeah.
on duty from
Familiar.
those days.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions, council? No? Well, welcome, and we're glad to have you back. I think it's really valuable information, so
Okay.
we
Well,
really appreciate it.
Like I said, we'll get you the findings we had without worrying too much about the Mother's Day event, because we know that was, that came later. But so far, until Mother's Day, that was about the worst storm of the season. It really was.
True,
In terms of
yeah.
duration was what killed it.
Right,
4 high tides.
yep.
It just never quit.
Yeah.
That's always been, you've got intensity, and you've got duration, and finally frequency. That's what makes a storm a
Right.
problem. If they occur back to back, that's a problem. If they're very intense, okay, that's a problem. Everybody understands that one. But how long they last, even if it's only 35 miles an hour, it can be pretty ugly.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Farrell. Thank you. Okay.
And next, council, we have the Desatnik Foundation on the agenda.
Chad? Welcome.
Good evening. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council, city manager, I would like to personally thank you all for the approval on our annual fundraising event, the Around the Cape Paddle, which is July 17th, as you know. We're extremely excited to raise funds for those that have suffered spinal cord injuries in Cape May, Atlantic, Monmouth, Cumberland, and Ocean counties. Assisting those individuals who have suffered spinal cord injuries and ultimately a result of me shattering 2 vertebrae in my neck while surfing at Poverty Beach back in 2001. We saw a huge need for helping families, caretakers, and individuals that have suffered spinal cord injury. We decided to start our own foundation, and 10 years later, very proud of what we've done so far. And again, thank you all for being a part of the approval process. Mike, I think it went on your desk and you signed it in about 10 seconds, so thank you again. City Clerk, we spoke earlier today. I just want to let you know that I do have some written statements by individuals that were not able to attend council meeting tonight. We have always been, we aim to stay transparent, and I will supply you with these statements so that they can go on record, because I feel it's really important to have them on record. Last week, there was a statement that was released on the Facebook page of the City of Cape May that they were planning to ramp up efforts regarding education, beach access, water quality, and although I do believe all these issues are extremely important, I'd like to read the original mission of the Beach Safety Advisory Committee from Resolution number 4201-2017. Whereas the city places the highest priority on preserving its shoreline and maintaining its beaches through beach replenishment projects and on ensuring that its beaches are safe for swimmers, surfers, and other beachgoers. There was a resolution that was brought about, and I just wanted to ask, again, in public, what is the current Beach Safety Beach Safety Advisory Committee's mission?
It's in the resolution.
Okay, so it's still the same as of now. As of today, the resolution to keep ensuring that its beaches are safe for swimmers, surfers, and other beachgoers. Is that correct?
Whatever the most, do you have it there?
My understanding is the most recent resolution affirms the commitment to safety embodied in Resolution 217.
Good enough. So the new resolution has not passed yet. Is that correct?
This is not really a question and answer, Chad. I mean, you're welcome.
You don't have to answer me at all, Zach. That's fine. If you want to sit there and not make any comments, I'm fine with that. I'm just asking a question. If the most recent resolution is different than this.
You got your answer.
Okay, thank you. Again, none of you have to answer any of my questions. This is a statement that I've prepared, and if you don't want to answer any questions, Mayor, feel free not to.
We just answered it, Chad.
I got more. Mr. Mayor, how often do you swim in the ocean during the summer months?
A lot.
Okay. Do you make a conscious decision to visit one beach or another due to the existing slope that continues to be prevalent on certain beaches in Cape May?
I swim at the beach a lot, Chad.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, how often do you go to the ocean during the summer?
Quite a bit.
Do you make a conscious decision to visit one beach or another during the summer months due to the extreme slope that has been created?
I go to the family beach. I just go to the same beach every year,
And which beach is that?
Staggers.
Got it. Councilmember Baldwin, how often do you go to the beach to swim during the summer?
A few times a week.
A few times a week. Is there one beach that you consciously make a decision to go to?
Again, the same beach every time.
Which beach is that?
Staggers.
Staggers Beach. Councilmember Yeager, how often do you swim during the ocean during the summer months?
Probably once a week, at least. Yeah.
Understood. Do you go to a certain beach?
I do.
Which beach is
always
that?
Went to Congress.
Congress Beach?
Yes.
Understood.
Social, yes.
City Solicitor Chris Gillenswartz, I've seen you out in the ocean a number of times. We surf together. Do you make a conscious decision to go to one certain beach during the summer?
Make a conscious decision to go swimming every day when the water's warm, and it doesn't matter the beach.
Good for you. Do you make a conscious decision to not go to certain beaches when you're going surfing?
No. Wherever the waves are good, Chad.
Wherever the waves are good. Got it. As Stu Farrell mentioned, the beach fill started back in the late 80s and early 90s. Injuries began to occur at an alarming rate. Former fire department administration members came to me with a dire plea to get the word out. Originally, it was someone was going to get seriously injured. That happened. Then, it was someone was going to break their back or their neck. That happened to me. Then, it was someone was going to become paralyzed. That happened to Dave Taylor. Then it was someone was going to become a quadriplegic. That was Dennis Miles and Archer Senf. Then it was someone is going to die. Well, the last 2 summers, a 56-year-old male was tumbled in the surf at Staggers Beach. A result of the accident punctured his lung, and he was dead on arrival at the hospital. Then last summer, a 16-year-old city employee was involved in an on-duty accident that resulted in Norman's death. I received a text message from the ER doctor that this was the most catastrophic spinal cord injury to ever occur on the Cape May beaches in the surf zone, and there was a really good chance that the young man was not going to make it. You all know what happened to Norman. Former Public Works Director Joe Picard went on record back in 2001 stating, in September of 2021, stating that whenever there's a heightened risk, the Public Works Department aims to resolve as soon as possible the issue at hand. For example, when the access mats are blown out of position, become a trip hazard, they immediately send the City of Cape May Public Works to address the issue and prevent any injuries from occurring. Since we began collecting data from the City of Cape May Fire Department, Beach Patrol, and local hospitals, back and neck injuries, broken bones, separated shoulders, separated hips, face contusions, and concussions have resulted in 35 catastrophic spinal cord injuries. Although this has become the norm in the Cape May surf zone, this should not be the case. Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of Environmental Protection has stated that in emergency situations, the City of Cape May is indeed allowed to manipulate sand in order to remedy the dangerous or hazardous conditions. My question to each one of you, having these statistics mentioned, would any of you consider that the situation is an emergency and should be addressed immediately? Mr. Mayor?
Any safety hazard, we're going to do what we can. But you know that the ocean is an inherently dangerous place. You know that.
Absolutely. Actually, Stu Farrell does studies that goes out 2,000 feet into the ocean. Have there been any injuries 2,000 feet off into the ocean?
Chad, that's why we just hired him. He was, as you know, he was let go, okay?
Right.
Nothing
In
was said about that.
2016, right?
Right.
Right.
And we rehired him.
Okay. Can you answer my question?
I just did.
Deputy Mayor?
Can you restate the question?
Sure. Having these statistics stated on record, would you consider that the situation in the Cape May surf zone should be addressed immediately as an emergency situation?
Chad, can I just jump in here?
Absolutely, Chris.
I understand what you're getting at. As a policy matter, council is trying to do their due diligence on any safety issues that are presented to the city, be it on land or in the sea. And what they're trying to do with Stockton is get data and get information that will allow them to make informed decisions going forward. But that's what they're doing. So whatever hasn't been done or looked at in the last few years, this council is taking steps to look at these things. And that's, I think, what you're seeing. And I don't know that you're going to get that response tonight because I don't think they have the information to respond intelligently to this.
It's just a question with an opinion. Do you feel that the number of injuries warrant an emergency situation and the sand should be manipulated?
Anytime anybody gets injured anywhere, it warrants a look. And that's, again, on the land or in the sea. Can you make things safer? And I think the city is always going to look for ways to do that.
Let me make one comment, Zach, Mr. Mayor. I would guarantee you that there have been 0 injuries in the actual ocean that you're talking about. They all occur in the surf zone. That's what we're looking to address. Councilwoman Baldwin and Mayor Mullick went on record stating that the beaches in Cape May are safe. I would actually agree 100% with both of you. The continuing issue in hand is not, in fact, the beaches, where less than 1% of the reported injuries occur. 99% of the injuries are in the surf zone, in between the low tide mark and the high tide mark, not 2,000 feet out or 1,000 feet out into the ocean. Any of you have ever looked at the injuries would easily see that there is an issue at hand. And because of the article that was written by Mr. Dreyfus here, he basically cherry-picked statistics from 2019 dating back to 2012. He presented to the city of Cape May that the city is actually below average versus other beach towns. This is simply the polar opposite. The city of Cape May is below average versus other, he compared the Cape May beaches to year-round communities like Newport Beach, California, St. Augustine Beach, Florida, and Carolina Beach, North Carolina. If you were to average out these numbers of injuries throughout the year, Cape May would actually be number 1, not number 4 in the reported injuries across the United States Life-Saving Association statistics. Let it be put on record that I have never, ever stated that beach replenishment should be stopped. It is vital for shoreline protection, beachfront homes, and businesses to thrive in our town. It was discussed in a meeting with the DEP, Army Corps of Engineers, and former city administration that funding needs to be initiated by the city of Cape May to create a demonstration project to create a safer beach. The city of Cape May must initiate the conversation. This is already in place with Jeff Van Drew. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to wait for another meeting. The Beach Safety Advisory's current direction is going backwards, not addressing the real issue at hand. Finger pointing should not be accepted with hopes of re-election or credit being given to one individual. This should be a group effort to make the surfing and swimming areas, the Cape May surf zone, the safest in the entire country, not an attempt to continue to sweep the hazardous swimming conditions underneath the rug. I ask each of you, actually I beg of you, be the change. Don't wait for an election year. Don't wait for the next Beachville project to begin. Be the change now. I would like to read a few prepared statements by individuals who were injured in the Cape May surf zone over the last 15 years.
Mr. Desatnik, I don't usually say this, but can you actually move the microphone away a little bit? I'm sorry. It's just too loud.
Take that as a compliment.
Yeah, for the recording. I want to make sure it's clear. Thank you.
David and Judy Taylor were on vacation in Cape May. He was 60 years old at the time of his injury. He's now 75. The incident occurred on August 7, 2007, 2 months into his retirement from his profession. He had been going to Cape May since he was 8 years old and started with his married life visiting Cape May in August of 1975. Archer Semp. Archer Semp was working in Cape May. He had been swimming here his entire life. His family owns a house in West Cape May. He dove and hit a sandbar. He was not body surfing. He was instantly paralyzed. He is a C2, C5 quadriplegic complete with paralysis from his chest down. He had been a three-sport athlete and an artist. He designed surfboards and signs for people. He had never been warned or known of the sandbars shifting in Cape May. Having signs and pamphlets that tell people the risks so they can enjoy and be safe is what is important. The beach replenishment project has left unnatural moving sand. Archer wants people to come to Cape May to enjoy themselves, and also he wants them to know that the risks there are involved with diving into the ocean. This is from Dennis Miles. Not one single day or action should ever define an individual for the rest of their life. But for Dennis, one single action and day did. On July 28, 2017, less than 50 feet from his towel on Broadway Beach, his life flipped upside down and forever to be defined as a quadriplegic for the rest of his life. His name is Dennis Miles, and he'd like to share his story with the people of power who are able to create and enforce change for the better of the Cape May community. Nearly 5 years ago, he was an average 27-year-old on his final day of family vacation in a beach town that had treated his family to a wonderful stay with visions of making an annual trip. Those visions of a peaceful future abruptly changed to a nightmarish blur as sweat dripped down his face, and he decided, it's frickin' hot, I need to go jump in that ocean. That was the decision that changed his life. He doesn't look back at that decision thinking he did anything wrong, or nor should he. It was a logical and innocent decision. But as a non-local to Cape May, he did not understand the force of the waves and the shallow surf at Broadway Beach. Less than 5 minutes of swimming in the ocean, a large wave approached. The last words he said to his brother was, "This is the one," and it was a really good one to jump into. The wave quickly crashed, and just like that, he did too. Crashing directly into the shallow shore break, he was instantly paralyzed from the neck down. That's when the nightmarish blur began. A minute plus of unconscious drowning, completely paralyzed until a lifeguard was able to bring him to the beach. It felt like such a freak accident, lying there, unable to move, with his family, and dozens of spectators around watching him in agony, holding on to his life. How could this happen to him? Doing something he had done hundreds of times in his life. Moments after his accident, his mom asked one of the nearby lifeguards if anything like this has ever happened before. The lifeguard's answer, "Ma'am, unfortunately, this happens all the time." It wasn't a freak accident. Injuries like his happen many times in a single beach season, not to mention the much more frequent non-life-changing injuries like concussions, separated shoulders, and broken bones. Injuries happen so frequently that there was literally weekly incident and injury reports. Looking back, Dennis was given no indication of warning or what he was getting into, and to the day, he wished he would have known. Maybe nothing would have changed, or maybe everything would have. He'll never know. 2 life-saving neck surgeries, 10 days in the ICU, 3 months of inpatient rehab, hundreds of thousands of medical bills later, he finally made it out of the hospital, but is in no finish line for a quadriplegic, but rather just the first checkpoint for the rest of his life. 5 years later, Dennis has done thousands of hours of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and strength training, totaling over $100,000 of out-of-pocket personal expenses to gain the level of independence he currently has. But he still and always will be defined as a quadriplegic because he was unaware of the danger present in the semi-shallow surf of Broadway Beach. Unfortunately, Dennis's story is not unique, and injuries like his continue to happen. I have a number of people that really wanted to come tonight and speak on their own behalf, and for one reason or another, they weren't able to make it. We have a very good friend by the name of Lydia, who is a surfer. She was injured about 3 years ago. She's had back surgery, and she can't make it tonight because she can't go through the PTSD that is involved with reliving her story. There's a woman here tonight by the name of Kitty Garcia. She was injured a few years ago. I'm not sure if Kitty wants to speak tonight, but again, she made an effort to be here. I'm not sure if her story wants to be told, but I'll give Kitty a second to think.
And it was July, and family, Poverty Beach. I didn't know that there was a drop. There were no signs. I don't know that I would have paid attention to them, but there were no signs, there were no warnings. I stepped off the drop, and then I get hit by 3 waves, back to back. I put up with this darling young lifeguard tried to get me out, and I was just like, just let me hang on to you. And I got out. I put up with 3 years of extreme pain. I had shots, I had medication, I had physical therapy. I finally, 10 weeks ago, I had cervical fusion, C3 through T2. I had a fracture in my T2. My neurosurgeon is now saying if my gait doesn't improve, if I still have problems walking, the next step is my lumbar. And so just to have a way of telling these people, yeah, we love having you here, but please be careful. It's real. I had sleepless nights. My husband will tell you, I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking I was having a heart attack. The pain was so bad. Just if something can be done.
We're sorry to hear of that experience, truly.
There's an individual here tonight who made a 2-hour trek down from Ocean Grove, New Jersey, who Ocean Grove has had beach replenishment in the past, and I'm going to ask Sam Jarman to come up.
Hi,
Thank you for being here.
I'm good.
Sam, prior to your injury, how familiar are you or were you with the beaches in Ocean Grove?
I grew up in Ocean Grove my entire life. I grew up at the beach. I only live 2 blocks away from it, 3 blocks. And growing up at the beach, I get a good impression of what it's like, and I can easily see the changing conditions in the beach. And I always know where it's safe to swim, where it's not safe to swim. And I would say I'm pretty well versed on information on the beach.
The day of your injury, the waves big, small?
Yeah, it would fluctuate between big waves, small waves. It was all over the place. It was really not predictable at all. But during my time as I was working there, on that day, I went surfing. I was able to surf, and I was in the water for about 2 hours and went up and down the whole beach and basically got a layout of where sandbars were, where sandbars weren't.
Daily life in a wheelchair. Can you, at least for the time being, because I don't know if anybody else has seen the posts on social media, I visited Sam in the hospital a few days, or I guess 10 or 14 days after his injury, and he had little or no movement from his neck down. And seeing the progress that you've made is just, it's a miracle. You know that, your mom knows that, your family knows that. But daily life as somebody that has suffered a spinal cord injury, I mean, how is life in a wheelchair?
It's difficult. I know I got to worry about where I can go, where I can't go. But, you know, when I wake up in the morning, I need help getting out of bed. And depending on what day it is, I'll either drive down towards Philly, and I go for physical therapy there for 2 hours, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And Friday, I go out for occupational therapy to work on my hands. But I spend a lot of time doing therapy. Even when I'm not going out towards outpatient, I'm still doing 3 to 4 to 2 hours of therapy a day at my house.
You know, I've been a broken record for 20 years. That's exactly what I've been. And, you know, hearing stories about Sam and Archer Semp, Archer's parents had to sell their practice and sell their building in Baltimore just to offset the costs, because this kid made a conscious decision to go into the ocean after he checked out of work at the beach club. They've spent close to $700,000 out of pocket just to get this guy, this man, to the UPenn campus. And, you know, At first, when I suffered my spinal cord injury, I felt very, very awkward talking to individuals like Sam and Archer and Dennis Miles. And what I've learned is that these people, they're not victims, they're individuals, they're people. You know, they need to tell their story. And what I've learned is that I've told my story hundreds of times to this council. Some of you have been here for years, some of you haven't been here for years. But my plea is that you make a conscious decision to move forward in the important part of the resolution with the Beach Safety Advisory Committee. Water quality is important. Access is important. Obviously, people are getting hurt on the beaches at Cape May. They should go back into the beach. They should have access to that. This is my last plea. This is the last time I'm coming up here, and I find it very interesting. You had a lot of questions, Stacy, for a lot of like bathroom questions, but you didn't have too many questions for me.
I do have a question for you.
Great.
Oh, I was waiting for you to finish before I asked the question.
Sure thing.
You mentioned that the city needs to start the demonstration project with the state, or the DEP, I guess it was. Can you go into some detail what this demonstration project is and what the end goal is with the demonstration project?
The end goal is a safer beach. And if you were to look into any of the data that's been collected or the reports from the Army Corps of Engineers, there's discussion of shortening, lengthening, taking out some of the rocks. As Stu mentioned, they have a project that's been going on for 30-plus years, and they haven't changed the plan.
Okay, I'm just going to ask, so what exactly is that demonstration project that is in need of? I understand there's certain, that they had talked about putting out some.
They had talked about changing the groins. They talked about changing the groins,
right.
lengthening the groins. There's a project up where Sam is in Belmar that actually took rocks out of the groins. I'm not an expert. I'm not going to claim to be an expert. I can just tell you that I've gotten phone calls from hundreds of people that have been injured on the beaches that have been beach replenished. Wildwood has never received beach replenishment. Is that correct, Dr. Farrell? City Wildwood has never had beach replenishment. They average 0.2 spinal cord injuries every year.
Okay, but can you, the demonstration project that needs to be completed, is it just changing the jetties, or is there anything else involved?
I'm not an expert. I can't answer that question.
Okay, I just was asking only
Got to
because
talk to
it
the
sounds-
experts at Department of Environmental Protection, individuals like Stu Farrell, Army Corps of Engineers. You know, there's a lot of challenges that are involved. You have piping plovers, like he had mentioned, oyster catchers. You know, there's a lot of aspects to this. But again, I'm not an expert.
Okay, so there is no actual project that is actually written down that has to be done. It still has to be developed? Okay, that's what I was trying to find out, what it actually is, so we can put it on the record, that's all.
I'll forward it to Aaron. You can take a look at it. It's been out for decades.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And also, just to kind of follow up on all of this, you've probably seen the Mark de Blasio. He's a coastal engineer. He's working with the city as well, working with the beach safety committee. You know, moving forward with.
Just to let you know, Mark de Blasio is not a coastal engineer.
He's an engineer. And
He's an engineer.
Yeah, he's an engineer, and
if you heard what the city engineer said earlier, he's not an expert. He's not going to speak to it.
That's not what she's saying.
This is giving us the first step in where we need to go with the demonstration project.
You have a volunteer who lives in the city of Cape May, who is an engineer that wants to get involved to help. So we're trying to take positive steps to do these things.
Absolutely. And
our last
just
council
to be
meeting-
clear, Mark de Blasio is not a coastal engineer, but there are coastal engineers in his office.
We just hired a coastal engineer last council meeting. So these are things that we are trying to take important steps. Every single one of us up here wants a safer beach. I mean, I hope you know that, Chad. So it's important.
A use of semantics, Zach. The beaches are safe. It's all about the surf zone.
I'm not getting into a semantics discussion.
Well, if you're making a statement that beaches are safe in Cape May, there's 100%, I would agree with you. It's a surf zone that needs to be addressed. It's not the beaches. It's not 2,000 feet out into the ocean. It's a surf zone.
I'm not arguing that, Chad. When I say ocean or anything, I'm not trying to say surf zone or 2,000 feet. I'm just
Well, the
saying-
pink elephant in the room is a surf zone.
Okay, understood.
I have nothing further, but I'm not sure if my dad or Sam's mom would like to say anything.
Thank you for your words. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to thank you. I was contemplating whether I'd speak or not, but I've been around since 1945 and been involved with the beach since 1954. And I'm going to cut out everything in between that the previous Beach Safety Committee did and accomplished with cooperation of council. The Beach Advisory Committee is an advisory committee. I have no authority except to report back to council through the liaison. And I have to thank Stuart Farrell from 1986 in Convention Hall when he told me my numbers from the beach and the fire department were anecdotal. So Dr. Mahaney, or Mayor Mahaney, decided that he would start a beach safety committee. Those members were my wife, my son Chad, Tony Monzo, and Bruce McLeod. And what the mayor did, in relationship to what Stuart Farrell said, and I quote from an Oprah report, which I got many years ago from 2016. Thanks for forwarding the Delaware Surf Zone Inquiry Report, especially since I have never previously received a copy. It should be informative and helpful in our city planning efforts. At my request, it's Mayor Mahaney, at my request, the city has just formed a beach safety committee to research and mitigate the surf zone injury issue on multifaceted basis. I will keep you informed of our planning efforts and also of our progress in resolutions. I took that resolution that was set in 2017 and worked with it thoroughly.
Back it up a little bit.
Sorry.
Nope, we're good. Thank you.
I compiled the information from the lifeguards, the beach patrol, and had Lower Cape Cape Regional Hospital involved in 2017, 2018. I gave the clerk, Aaron, a copy of that compiled information, which should be part of the minutes of the previous committee. That previous committee met with Senator Van Drew. He told us to wait till he got into Congress that he'd be able to do something. We had an hour-and-a-half meeting right before the pandemic with the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEP. And I will tell you that the liaison today, I know she had the report from 2092 where the Army Corps stated in there exactly what could be done as a demonstration project on 2 jetties, if you'll remember that. Just check the report. It's there. There are grants available. It shouldn't be costing the city a lot of money. But I'm going to hand this out and leave it on the table. I'm not going to hand it to council. If anybody in the public, there's 10 copies here. I gave Aaron one to please attach to the minutes. The only one that I don't have the 10 is the National Weather Service. And they do a report on all injuries, surf zone fatalities in the United States. This is 2022. There's already been 28. Our beaches aren't even open. So the stats that were used previously, whether it be Mr. Dreyfus or the stats that were presented from, I believe her name was Karen McGee. Was she the one from Delaware? Yeah, I thought so. Karen McGee made a presentation about the BB health system. We took that. Mayor Mahaney took it. He and I did not get along very well many times. But the purpose, as Chad said, get the surf zone done. You need to meet with the Army Corps. You need a coastal engineer. Vince, I know him very well, great guy. I can tell you that the city managers that I worked with during my tenure with the Beach Safety Committee made contacts with the federal government, not the advisory board. And council, it's up to you to get this job done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Please.
But
My name is Jessica Drummer. Sam is my son. He was patrolling that day. He was up and down the beach that day on his surfboard, but when he was injured, he was in the water, not on a surfboard, and he just dove into a benign wave that he would dive into 1,000 times before. And when he left earlier in that day, the sand wasn't piled the way it was when he got back. I got a phone call that no mother should get. Our day-to-day is very, very difficult. I urge you as a city council, I don't know the hierarchy of who's who and who's in control of what. I don't know Department of Environmental Protection, from engineers, from anything. But I'm talking to you as a mother, and if there's something you could do, please do it. It is so. Someone was injured a year after Sam in Brick. There's, I guess, a little part of Brick that touches the water, I don't know. And when the family was telling me about it, all of a sudden this whale came up from my feet. Like, it just comes out. And I see this every day. I see the people every day fighting to walk, fighting to breathe, some of them. This is our world that we're in now. We're in the spinal cord injury world. Whatever the hierarchy is here, and whatever needs to be done, please, I beg you, make it a priority. I know it's you know, I used to look at Christopher Reeve, and it seems so far removed. And now, I think, you know, I'm in constant contact with spinal cord injury foundations. How did this become our world? I just beg you, whatever you can do, make it a priority. Don't let this happen to another child, and I pray to God it doesn't. I pray to God you all have the safest summer possible and the safest time going forward, but please do everything you can, because to live this life, paralysis, what you see is just the tip of the iceberg. If it was just his feet not moving, it would be no problem. There's so many other problems that come with paralysis, and there are children and adults suffering. So please, I thank you for your time. I thank you for letting us drive up or down, whatever direction we're in, and speak to you. But I beg of you, whatever order this needs to be done in, just get in a room and get it done. Do something, make the surf zone safer. I live by the beach. I get the need for replenishment, you know. I get it. Ours is one of those beaches that keeps eroding. And yes, Mother's Day, it took that whole weekend, took a beating. It was just, but our town, they understand the need. They're trying to do, you know, I spoke with someone in the Department of Environmental Protection. He urged us just to educate the people until we could get something done. And I know that you guys have made strides with education, but I really get together and please do something. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you all for being here as well. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have a discussion on transportation services.
Okay. Transportation services discussion?
I put this on the agenda because I didn't see any resolution for the jitney at the time.
Okay.
So, but we do have the resolution on for the we do have the resolution for the jitney here, so maybe we can just discuss it now. We'll save some time later.
Okay. Do you want to?
So I understand there was two bids for the jitney. They were pretty close. Off by $50 a day, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we had them both before.
Just so I'm clear, is it 50 a day or 50 a jitney?
50 a jitney.
Okay, okay. I just want to make sure I read it right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, one was 349, the other was 400.
Yeah. So that's actually a pretty good savings, $50 a jitney.
Per day, per jitney.
Oh, yeah, no, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Was there anything else that was different between the two in the bids?
Other than, I think, the AC jitney just kind of gave some responses to each RFP item, and indicating basically their flexibility to whatever the city's needs would be. You know, in other words, they made some suggestions about, you know, you might want to have 2 during midweek, 3 during the weekend, that kind of thing, but ultimately that's up to the city's discretion. It's just that per price. You know, the city could do 3-day if they wanted to. It would just be $349 times 3.
I think this is lower than when it was before.
It was
Because I think we were paying 400 before with the jitney.
last year, yeah.
I'll just point out to council, I mean, it's competitive contracting, so price is a factor, and usually the major factor, but there's other considerations too, like, prior positive, negative experience, that kind of thing. And I think the city has worked with both these contractors in the past, so price is definitely kind of the one that jumps out at the top, but council has the discretion to reject all, has the discretion to make an award if certain factors outweigh others, so.
Yeah, that's why I was asking if there's anything else, because I think they both have done business with us.
Yes.
And they didn't deviate from the RFPs at all?
No, and the one contractor did kind of give some responses, and I just made sure to put in the resolution that the terms of the RFP are what govern. It's not like what was in response. But a lot of that was kind of like them giving information to the city to consider as part of their review process.
And again, this contract is just for 1 year.
It's expires no later than December 31st, 2022. It has kind of a October cutoff date, but they offer, if the city were to want to continue or for weekends or something like that, they indicate they're open to that, but it would expire no later than the end of the year.
Okay.
I have nothing else.
No, it's great news, really. I think we all thought with gas prices, we might keep going up, but it's nice to go down. Okay, Parking Advisory Committee
Well,
discussion?
yeah, I put this on the agenda also, and it kind of goes into, I can now say the jitney. And it was, I put on here the Parking Advisory Committee because I wanted to make sure everybody was aware that the Parking Advisory Committee a couple years ago were very instrumental in pushing for the jitney and pushing for what the path should be or where they made some suggestions. And council didn't always take all their suggestions, but they did make suggestions because they had done a lot of research on where there was parking spaces at certain times during the day, where there was more congested. So they were trying to have people park in certain spots where there would be parking, such as one of their suggestions was to Beach Avenue by Peter Shields. That was supposed to be, I think it was Philadelphia North. They were supposed to be free after like 5 o'clock. And then there's also free parking down by the Cove, also after a certain hour.
Right.
And that was to encourage people to park there and then be transported in with the jitney.
Right.
They also recommended certain signage so that people were aware that these areas were free. And also, again, I think it was a lot of advertisement on what the path was going to be for the jitney. So why I'm putting this in here, the Parking Advisory Committee, because it came with the M-Track that if going forward, if Cape May decided to do a transportation system, what would it cost? How many jitneys would there need to be? What would the routes be? And overall, what the cost would be. So the idea was to reenact the Parking Committee, Advisory Committee, so that all the research they had done, they could bring back and use that knowledge to put a plan in place of what, if you had a blank slate and you were creating a jitney, what it would be, how many jitneys, what the routes would be, and then give it back to the M-Track to say, okay, this is what the cost would be. Where could we get the money to fund this transportation authority or this transportation system?
That's great.
So if you look at the Parking Advisory Committee, there has been some people that have left, but the majority are still around. And I think they have a lot of knowledge that they can use to create this system or this idea of a system. That's the reason why there would be 2 committees, one, and each with a different aspect of the project. One designing where the jitney should go, and the other one, the M-Track, with finding the money to fund it. So maybe at the next meeting we can, well, maybe I should put it at this meeting, ask for people that would like to be on the parking committee, because we do have a number of openings now that some people aren't there, that there might be some openings for that. Reenact, put the resolution out to have the parking committee, advisory committee come back with the statement of what their task is. Because we think it's very important to put a task in there, and this is what your task is, and have an end time for that, so that we can have start and end and one task for that.
I like that.
I would like to take a look, though, at the current resolution from the Parking Advisory Committee to make sure.
I sent that, or well, we would do that whole new resolution.
The whole new one.
Yeah,
but
there'd be a whole new resolution that we would have Mr. Gillen Schwartz for the
Okay.
parking advisor.
Okay, I didn't know if you were
saying what
looking at
it
keeping
was.
the same resolution.
No, it would be a
Okay.
different resolution
A different,
with this
different,
task only.
different task, okay.
And maybe,
understand.
maybe that new resolution can go over some of the aspects that were found out, like the spaces in a parking garage were $20,000 or $22,000, which was one of the reasons they said, okay, this doesn't make financial sense to do and maintain a garage and things like that. But I mean, I do think some of those things maybe that were already stated by the parking committee could be in that resolution, just to kind of narrow the focus, of what we're looking at.
Right. Now, Mr. Gillen Schwartz, does it have to be two separate resolutions? One for what the Amtrak is doing and one for the parking committee, or can it be one?
It can be one. I actually think if you're going to kind of give two sets of tasks for the same goal, you might want to put it in one so that
Okay.
both council and the advisory committees have one source for the information.
Plus, the Amtrak's current resolution designates them to look at funding sources. So I would just say that it already covers that.
So just,
Yeah, I think you look at that resolution that I handed out to everyone.
I do have, I have a draft resolution just on that subject, but to be clear on council's direction, Amtrak to be looking at funding sources, and then the parking committee to be looking at potential options.
Developing the plan.
Okay.
Would we be appointing new membership in that same resolution, or would that be a separate resolution reinstating the parking committee with the new membership?
I mean, if we have the members ready to go for the next resolution, we can put them in there.
Put it all together?
But there's some already on the list.
Okay.
So let me reach out to the ones that are on the list and make sure they still want to be part of it. And then we'll also put it out there if anybody's interested in being on the parking committee.
I can post it on the website tomorrow, too. And we have a long break in between this meeting, and the next meeting is not until Wednesday, the June 8th, because of the primary.
So if anyone's listening that has the solution to end our parking problem in Cape May, give an email to the clerk and
we're all ears.
we'll get it taken care of. Okay? All good on that topic?
Yes.
Okay. And we're all in agreement. I think that makes sense, I believe, right? Yeah, okay. Ordinance for introduction, clerk?
Sure. I'm not sure if the solicitor has feelings one way or another, or council, but we could either motion to introduce these all together or individually.
I think individually.
You want it individually? Okay. So first, we have ordinance 465-2022, an ordinance amending Chapter 510 of the City Code concerning disclosure of existence of water-related emergencies.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
You can just indicate to council and the public, we had a resolution with the Lower Township MUA regarding outstanding water services related to our interconnect agreement, which goes both ways. And what this does is just confirm and clarify that any time that the interconnect, which is in this case very rare, but at the point that it is utilized by the water department, that will be deemed a water emergency condition in the city of Cape May. Notice goes to the city manager, and notice goes to council as soon as possible, so that council can be apprised of, these types of events.
Right. Not only can we be apprised of the events, that maybe we can take some action and maybe do some water conservation.
Sure. Yeah, and let the public know, maybe not water your lawn so much, that kind of stuff. But that's the goal of it, and just to clarify that that is a water emergency condition to avoid any confusion about it.
And it is stemmed from the fact that we're paying a bill from 2018 at the last council meeting, because the bill wasn't paid for the water that went across the transfer pipe, which again, we got to make sure we have everything operating smoothly at the water plant, so we don't have to do that. It's just kind of a reminder. Do I have a motion on this ordinance?
We have a motion and second if we're ready to vote, council.
Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes?
Councilmember, or Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Next, we have ordinance 466-2022, an ordinance amending Chapter 166 of the City Code to establish a harbor master in the city of Cape May.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments on 466?
I know that just a real quick clarification, at our last council meeting when this originally came up, we questioned whether or not the JIF has been notified. And Mr. Gillenschwartz, do you want to?
Sure. I spoke to the solicitor, or the attorney for the JIF on this, and explained to him the framework of the ordinance, the position, it being a volunteer nature. And I'll just point out that, again, as I indicated last time, and I believe volunteer duties, and shall be limited to observing and reporting, and shall not include patrol or physical inspections of abandoned vessels or anything like that. So, again, there are certain volunteer positions that can be covered under workers' comp and JIF and that kind of thing, and that deals with emergency workers, volunteer firemen, and positions like that. This is not that. This is more like a planning board, HPC member, volunteer position, advisory incapacity, and leaving the physical work to the physical employees that are assigned those tasks. So made that clear in this. I believe it was clear before, but we even made it even clearer in this draft. And spoke to the JIF attorney, and he indicated the only thing really that needs to be done is if you appoint the person, just send it to the JIF so they know, but it's not going to be one of those volunteer positions for an emergency work. It's a purely, simply volunteer position, like we said before, one tick above the honorary plaque person.
And I noticed in this ordinance, it kind of takes away from, I think we were talking before, that the person's going to be engaging people. This person doesn't engage anybody, so it is more like a planning board member who doesn't engage the public.
100%. If they see something, they say something to the actual employees, the code enforcement, the police, the state Marine Services Bureau. It's not, there's no self-help for this position. It's inform the actual employees.
And this person would be appointed by council, correct?
Correct. And I'll point out too, you can, solicit resumes or letters of interest and that kind of thing. You don't have to necessarily put that in here, but it contemplates that because like those appointments, they go through council, so you're going to want to get letters of interest, and you can ask those types of questions when the appropriate parties indicate their interest.
Great. Okay. I think it makes a lot of sense to have a volunteer keeping an extra eyes on the harbor for us. Makes sense. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Next, we have ordinance 467-2022, an ordinance amending Chapter 10 of the City Code regarding the allocation of funding for the tourism utility.
Do I have a motion? Motion on ordinance 467?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll
Any questions?
second that. Yep.
Any questions or comments?
I have a couple questions. One of my questions about this is, I guess, who asked for this change and why?
This-
What's the reason behind it?
I think this was a request from both CFO Neil Young and working with our MTRAC committee.
Amtrak, yeah.
And just to highlight where the discussion was, at least from my part, I think existing Section 10 doesn't consider the fact that council made changes to the occupancy tax to include transient rentals, hotels, and then go up to the 3% that you're permitted by state statute. And the current language provides that the amount of the occupancy tax received by the city that exceeds the sum of 1 million in whatever year, and there's a 2% increase or whatever over the next few years, but any amount that's over that number goes into the tourism utility. And the thought process was, why not provide yourselves more flexibility during the budgetary process and allow the city managers and the CFO to make, good decisions on a yearly basis, and especially with that additional revenue that'll be coming in, it'll provide the city more flexibility during the budgetary process. And that decision obviously runs its way through council too, through that process.
Okay, that was my second question. So this is just for, I guess when you put in there city manager and CFO, it kind of makes you think that they're making the decision and not council on where the money's going. And that's why when you're saying it comes back around, I understand that, but I guess I don't understand why the city manager and CFO is actually put in that and named, and not just say, it's put in the tourism utility and budget it as necessary.
Because the city manager, pursuant to the Faulkner Act and our city code, is responsible for preparing the budget. So it seemed to make sense to just kind of indicate that it's parity with the rest of our code.
Well,
And that discussion, I guess my understanding and my thought process with this amendment was that ultimately the appropriate amount would find its way before council through the annual budget process.
right, but it doesn't really say there for the annual budget. It kind of just says, such amounts from the occupancy tax received by the city may be appropriated by the city manager or CFO in the budgetary process. Okay.
And then we have to approve it, obviously, the city council, yeah.
Yeah.
And make suggestions, changes, definitely.
Yep.
Just takes the handcuffs off that you have right now with this, any amount over that 1 million and 2% increase.
And it does say only to the extent necessary to balance the tourism budget. So it's not a blank check, it's just,
Right.
Right.
you have a budget, this is the amount you're going to get.
Now, is this putting all the money from there, from that tourism into the tourism? The
No.
occupancy
No, it's not requiring anything either way. What it's doing is allowing, on an annual basis during the budgetary process, the city manager and the CFO to look at occupancy tax revenues and appropriately balance the budget, for tourism utility, and not mandate that just you get over a dollar figure, that has to go into the tourism utility.
Okay, so depending on how the tourism is going, the tourism utility, say if it's in the red, then they can take more of the occupancy tax and put it towards that
Sure.
to balance it.
Right.
But they can also use that occupancy tax for other things, not just the tourism utility. Correct? Okay. I just want to make sure that was clear.
Because that's always been a question from M-Track, as far as, yeah.
We don't have public comment on this.
No.
We will on second reading.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, council? Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Next, we have 468-2022. This is a bond ordinance providing for various beach utility improvements by and in the city of Cape May and the county of Cape May, state of New Jersey, appropriating $445,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $445,000 bonds or notes of the city to finance the costs thereof.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
I have some questions related to, for this bond, we're for the public buildings, we're appropriating $375,000 for a useful life of 15 years. And it says for various improvements to the city beachfront and grounds. Just so, I keep thinking every year that we're going to put this money towards a bathroom, and every year, it just never gets there. Last year, we appropriated $300,000 for improvements to city beachfront promenade buildings and facilities. Where did it go? And here we are again putting more money into it, and yet we're still not getting to the bathrooms.
This is specifically
It's
for
the
bathrooms.
yeah.
I mean, maybe not specifically,
well,
but that
yeah.
it is for that use.
That is one of the projects identified within the capital request. And we are currently working on soliciting architects, which is not as easy as it once was. The first couple proposals that we got were pretty high. So we're looking for other ones, and the timing is also, we got thrown for a loop on how long they were out. You know, we were hearing 2 months, 3 months before they could even get to it. So we're still working on getting that aspect done so that we can start the construction, and it's in the works.
So I guess my question is, last year we did $300,000, and I was under the impression last year it was supposed to be for bathrooms. And do we have an idea where that went? You know what I'm saying? If it,
Well, we didn't borrow it all. This is just an authorization to borrow that amount.
we-
Until we do a project, we do not spend that money.
I thought we did bond this money last year.
We didn't spend it.
So we still have it then?
Portions of it. Some of it went towards the promenade improvements. Some of it went towards various building improvements to the beachfront, but not all of it. No, we did not spend all of it. I don't have the figures in front of me.
I wasn't expecting you to.
Right.
But I guess my thing is that we keep saying we're doing something, but just never,
And every once in a while, you'll notice that we come back with a cancellation of old bonds and a reissuance, and that's where that happens. If we do not spend all, we don't just go and spend it because it got approved. If the project comes in under or the project doesn't get done, we keep a list of those various approvals, and then as they grow, we'll come back in, and there'll be some years where we can fund a portion of the capital from the canceled bonds.
yeah, but we haven't canceled any of the current ones lately. They were like the old ones, I think, that we canceled.
Right, we would cancel the old ones. We cancel the oldest ones first.
Right, but
But we do want to hire an architect and get. the
Right,
project
and we are soliciting RFPs, and hopefully we'll be able to get something to put in
Now,
front
is
of
that-
council.
is that RFPs, professional RFPs, or are we going out to actual RFP with the bid process?
RFP, a request
the
for
architect.
proposals.
Well, I'm just asking because it seemed like we went out for the,
We are soliciting proposals from professional architects.
from our pool of engineers, right? Or
No,
not pool of
architects.
architects?
Architects, licensed architects.
Do we have a pool of architects?
No.
Okay, so I guess my question is, I don't remember council coming before council that we were going out to bid for architects, and I'm just asking.
Wait.
We're not going out.
This is a totally different topic, though. I just want to reel us back in. This bond is for the maintenance of various improvements to city beachfront promenade buildings and grounds. There's other equipment in there as well. We have to bond for it to pay for those RFPs, which would be coming. And then any of those would be approved by council, and any of the expenses would be approved by council as we move forward. I just want to make sure we don't get into too much discussion on architects and things like that, because that's not what this is.
Well, it would be paying for the architects, though.
It would be, yeah, yes.
So it is kind of related to it, since it's for those projects that we're bonding for.
All I'm saying is the discussion on architects and this project will be forthcoming on council.
I just wanted to clarify too, like a lot of that discussion earlier and right now, we're talking about professional services contracts. I see I don't think it's efficient necessarily for council to go out for RFPs every time. The city manager's office can reach out and request proposals at any time for professional services, just to get an idea of what the relative cost may be before presenting it to council, because that award 100% has to go before council. So just getting more information, I think, is what the city managers were looking to do.
Okay. Any other questions on the bond?
I just have one other point. I don't understand why we're bonding for useful life of 5 years, but we're bonding for, is this 20 years? Is this a 20-year bond?
Well, there's different useful lives. Obviously, equipment is 5, but that doesn't mean that we necessarily get rid of these things after 5 years or whatever. It's just how they bond for it.
Yeah, I guess it was my impression that you weren't allowed to bond for anything that had a life of 5 years, that it had to be a certain life that you're bonding for.
I think it's 5 years and up.
Well, why I'm saying is I know with vehicles, you couldn't bond a vehicle unless it had four-wheel drive, because it would extend the life of it. But now they do allow you to bond for electric vehicles. The state does. I think they just passed that resolution or ordinance.
I'm rusty on my public contracting, but I believe it's 5 years, at least a minimum of 5 years useful life.
All of these ordinances were prepared in consultation with our bond counsel, and I am sure that they are all meeting the requirements of the state of New Jersey.
Right, and I understand. I know the bond counsel wants us to bond, and, you know, that's always is their goal. But if we can pay for stuff without bonding, that's what we should be doing, and be good financial stewards of the money. And I'm not saying that maybe these aren't applicable, but there's other things in these bonds tonight that maybe we shouldn't be bonding for.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
I'll let this be introduced, yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Next, we have 469-2022, bond ordinance providing for various water sewer utility improvements by and in the city of Cape May, in the county of Cape May, state of New Jersey, appropriating $1,364,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $1,364,000 bonds or notes of the city to finance the costs thereof.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments?
I just have one comment again. There's a good amount of material, $279,000, that only have a useful life of 5 years that we're going to be bonding. And I just think that maybe we should take a look at some of those things that we should be paying outright and put it into the budget and not just bond for it and pay it over 20 years.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Next, we have 470-2022, bond ordinance providing for various 2022 capital improvements by and in the city of Cape May, in the county of Cape May, state of New Jersey, appropriating $2,484,500 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $2,366,189 bonds or notes of the city to finance the part of the cost thereof.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments?
Again, this is a good amount of money that we're bonding here. I think it's, what is it? Almost $2.5 million. Again, a lot of this, there's a good amount of money in here that is 5 years useful life, which is probably almost $500,000 of 5 years of useful life. And one of the items in here, which under 5 years for public safety, is improvements to the base station dispatch system. And I guess my question is, I guess when we were looking to do the change dispatch over to county, was this put into the financial feasibility study that this was going to be needed? And is there a reason why we're bonding for something that a base station dispatch system, wouldn't that have been covered by the insurance of the failure ever with a lightning strike?
You want to have, Chief, do you want to answer that question?
Well, it's $196,000, Chief, but it's for various public safety. It's not just that part of it.
I'll read it in its entirety. Various public safety improvements, including but not limited to acquisition and installation as applicable of various safety equipment, including but not limited to personal protective equipment, and communications recording system improvements, including but not limited to improvements to the base station and dispatch systems.
Yeah. I guess my thing is, we've got to make sure we're budgeting the departments that are certain areas that they take on some of these responsibilities for budgeting these expenses.
The number seems, this equipment layout, it seems that it's correct. However, I believe some of this is, we'd have to ask Neil Young on this one as far as where that's allocated, because that number, I believe it's for county dispatch, but I'm not clear on what it is, because it's not in my current, that wasn't in my current capital ask, if that's what I'm looking at here. It just, I mean, I think maybe Neil can explain how that's divvied out. Maybe that is maybe that number there is from the insurance money, but it's unclear to me as what that actually is. I do apologize. It's something very close on my budget, but it's the personal protective equipment in there. If I can ask, Mr. Velasquez, as far as this number here, would this be the items I've asked for in capital for this year, like my car cameras and that such? Because that would be, that's, if it's spelled out here, that, if you're pulling that up, I can explain every item in my capital request. If that $196,000 is for the items in my capital request, if we can give a few minutes to that, because I don't want it to get held up because of that.
Well, under item 2, it says vehicles and equipment. That's where it has electric police vehicles.
Okay, so then I'll back up then. So if this is if we're speaking about my capital ask for 2022, correct? First line item will be vehicles.
It is not just yours, I will point out.
Yeah,
It's also fire.
It's mixed in there. So I know for my capital ask, $139,955 is for the electric vehicle purchase for this year. That's the 2 electric vehicles. That's $139,000. $25,000 of that number is the protective equipment I asked for some new shields, bulletproof vest, some new armory, some new weapons that we need. That's $25,000. Then we go to $18,000. That's for new car computers. And then I go to new in-car car cameras. That's $25,000. And I think it also includes my e-ticketing. It does not include anything with dispatch, because that money was covered completely by the insurance cost. The $551,296. That was money from the insurance fund. This capital ask is not, and maybe it's written incorrectly here, is not replacing any dispatch equipment. The radios that we bought, the radios I have on my hip here, that was all insurance money. So this capital ask is mixed in with other things outside my line.
All right, we have the list here. It includes public safety for the fire department, too. You want to touch on it, Lou?
Yeah, and I'm just going to read the acronyms because I don't always know what they stand for. The Axon MVRs and ALPRs for vehicles.
I can pause you there. So that's the new in-car cameras that connect with our body-worn cameras that we were granted with the $91,000 last year. So everything runs seamlessly. When we pull up, have an accident, et cetera, that car camera connects with our body camera. That's what that Axon is.
Yeah, but isn't that underneath item 2? Because it says that's what it's, installation of equipment for vehicles.
I'm sorry, I don't see where you're looking. Item 2.
Vehicles and equipment.
But that's
What do you mean, item 2?
general.
Page 2.
Page 2.
Item 2, page 2.
Oh, different page.
I guess my point.
That covers the equipment that the chief will need to install into a vehicle once he purchases it. That covers the total purchase and outfitting of a police
Correct.
vehicle.
If it's the $139,000, that's for the 2 cars and all of the electric cars for the lighting, all the systems that go into the computer, into the car. It's $140,000 basically to outfit 2 cars.
There's allocated $324,000.
I think there's.
It's also for things other than
Like
police
backhoes,
vehicles.
not just you.
Yeah, sorry. I apologize. I want my money. I'm not sure about everybody else's.
Yeah, I guess my point to this is, and you mentioned Chief mentioned personal protective equipment. again, shouldn't that be put under budgeting for your department and not capital equipment? Since it's something that only has a lifespan of 5 years, and if somebody leaves, you're going to need more.
Well, we actually originally did ask for it in our OE, and sitting with the managers and Mr. Young, it was broken down that, are these items you want to purchase, are they capable of surviving 5 years? They are. Weaponry, okay, I'm not just buying bullets, so these are weapons, shields, they have a lifespan over 5 years. The items in my $25,000 line for personal protective equipment all have shelf life over 5 years. That's where that is. So that's, yeah, you want to give it back to me in OE, I'll buy it tomorrow. You know what I mean? So that's, I'll take it in OE, but I think capitally it stretches it out a little bit further for sustainability. I do agree with you. If you think we can afford to pay for something now, a small item like not a small item, but an item of 25,000, I take it in OE, but I think we were looking to not go over that, raising the taxes this year. I think that would have pushed us into a different place. Not just me, but everybody.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that, you took dispatch away, you got,
I think the wording here makes it unclear that it sounds like it's all for dispatch. It's absolutely not. Dispatch is gone and being paid for. I mean, in that number, I don't know if that is, no, it's not capital for the 245.
No, and it says base stations and dispatch systems, where, some of the communication items that we would need to put into a vehicle would count as part of that dispatching item. So it is not replacing or putting in anything to deal with county dispatch. This is just the outfitting of our vehicles and our officers in the normal course of operations.
Okay.
And I do have it spelled out. If you look in the back of your budget binders, it's spelled out per item, 1, 2, there's, I think, 6 items.
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
And just a quick comment, because I take what Leon Costello said. This is just really the first step. We don't have to spend this.
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be spent. And I think there was a time a couple years ago that we didn't have capital expenditures, which was nuts for a town of this size and a town with this budget. We've got to get the proper equipment to all of our police officers, our firefighters. We're going to do that and make sure they have the best equipment we can afford. And of course, this fits within our 0% tax increase budget. So I think it's smart and it makes sense. Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Next, we have ordinances for second reading and consideration for adoption with public hearings. We've got 456-2022, an ordinance amending Section 525 of the City Code regarding vertical datum standards and confirming the applicability of NAVD 88.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make motion.
Do I have a second?
Wait a minute, I thought we didn't do the 2.5 million, did we? Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah, we just did that one.
We did.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost track, sorry.
That's okay.
No worries.
I'll second.
And Mayor, there is a public hearing this evening.
Okay, anyone wish to speak on ordinance 456 on the, and seeing none, we can close public comment. Any questions or comments, council? I think we got this all straightened out and should make things a little less confusing for our staff. So roll call, please.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes,
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Next, we have 457-2022, an ordinance amending Sections 525 and 417 of the City Code regarding expiration and extension of various variance approval.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a public hearing?
Public hearing, Mayor. Anybody
Anyone
wishing to speak on 457-2022?
Anyone? Okay. Seeing none, we can close public comment. Any questions or comments, council? Just a reminder, this is the expiration of the extension of variance approval. Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
yes,
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
We have 462-2022, an ordinance amending angled parking on Beach Avenue to provide for dedicated parking for low-speed vehicles.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
And I'm going to let you do your...
Okay. We do have a public hearing on 462-2022 at this time.
Any comment on this? This is the 4 dedicated parking spots in front of the convention hall.
Appreciate it. Patricia Gray Hendricks, 106 Trenton Avenue. At the May 3rd council meeting, Ordinance 462, 2022 was introduced to amend angled parking on Beach Avenue to provide dedicated parking for low-speed vehicles. At that meeting, when asked if the county was aware of the city's plan to have vehicles backing up into traffic, the public heard the city, and I quote, "We've been working with Bob Church on this, and he's comfortable with what we're doing. We're making sure that there is no issue with that." End of quote. Further, the city went on to say, and I quote, "We've had a verbal approval, and the only concern he had was the angle when they back out to make sure with oncoming traffic that there's enough room." End of quote. The public heard assurances that the city would continue to confer with Bob Church, the county engineer. My reason for being here in this public hearing tonight is to ask the question for clarification on Ordinance 462. Did the city receive approval in writing to provide the dedicated angled parking for low-speed vehicles before conducting this scheduled public hearing and the possible adoption of this ordinance tonight?
I can answer that, Mayor. We have approval from Bob Church, and if you need me to provide writing tomorrow, I'll get it back from him. But yes, we have all the approvals. We did, when we were talking at the last meeting, we're going through the process, make sure it's safely backed up. He's been out there, he's sanctioned it, and so we have the approval. But I'll get something in letter if it wants another something black and white.
My concern is that this area is dense and it's complex area for both vehicle and pedestrian traffic. So my questions are, and I think they should have been answered in writing before you adopt this ordinance, is there enough room to allow the vehicle to back out, stop, realign with the adjacent line buffer area without encroaching into the automobile travel lane?
Yes.
Is there enough vision for a driver approaching that area to see beyond the trailer comfort station to see a low-speed vehicle starting to back up? As a golf cart owner, perhaps one of the first people in the city to get one some 9 years ago, I'd like you to consider these issues tonight. Low-speed vehicles are not cars with safety backup features. They only make the sound of backing up. A fully loaded, low-speed vehicle may have riders on the back seats, facing the traffic, which is a common seating area for passengers and many, often children. Low-speed vehicles were designed to be in low-speed situations. No densely traveled parking areas, for example, in front of the convention areas. Night vision will make the situation all the more dangerous, combined with headlights from cars in the area. Some visitors who rent the low-speed vehicles are not aware of these conditions. Were there any tests of all of these conditions?
Listen, I can assure you, I'm sorry, but I can assure you, we looked at all this. We went over it with Bob Church. As I said earlier in the meeting, first and foremost with me is public safety. And I sure wouldn't be asking council to approve this if all these conditions haven't been addressed.
I truly believe that for the council to adopt this ordinance 462 is premature. The public needs to have assurances, and even in writing for the council, from the county, and I would add the Cape May Police Department, that they agree and have tested out the revised ordinance. I'm requesting the City of Cape May Council to perhaps table this issue until the city and the county can produce clear evidence that due diligence has been performed to implement low-speed angled parking on Beach Avenue for the safety of residents and visitors to the city. Public safety, safety in general, is an obligation.
Chris, I have a question for you. Right now, a golf cart can park in any spot in town, correct?
Correct.
So they could theoretically park on Beach Drive, and there's angled parking spots right now.
Correct.
So there's nothing that would prevent them from doing it right now without even having this.
That's correct.
It's a
We all
county
know,
road, right?
yeah, and you all know there's angled parking just in front of the arcade, not far down.
It used to be all angled parking
Exa-
in front of Convention Hall there,
yeah.
anyway.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council? Roll call, please.
I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead,
just
please.
one other thing. City manager, just following up with Bob Church, getting all of those documents.
That's not a problem.
Okay.
I'll have it for you. I can assure you, he's been 100% with it, had some questions beginning. We did all the measurements and all that. We're in full compliance for safety.
Okay.
Backing up, that was an issue last, they pull in just like any other angle parking with a regular car, and
Okay.
they can park anywhere in the city.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Next, we have 463, 2022, an ordinance amending Section 7 of the City Code to establish additional stop intersections along Broad Street.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I'm sorry.
No worries. Public hearing. Anybody on 463, 2022?
Anyone here on 463 ordinance? This is the stop signs at the intersection of Broad and Elmira. Just a thumbs up? Okay. We can move on.
Good, yeah, that's right.
Okay. Any questions or comments, council?
Nope, it's a good thing.
Okay. Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
And lastly, we have 464-2022, an ordinance naming an undesignated public right-of-way between Lafayette and Washington Streets.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Public hearing scheduled, Mayor, if anybody would like to comment on this ordinance.
Anyone here to speak on, Worcester Way?
Worcester.
Worcester Way? I think that's a smart move. You don't want to talk on that. Okay. Any questions or comments, council? Okay. And just, this is the undesignated public right-of-way that we're naming Worcester Way after Barney Doherty in his honor. Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Okay, next, council, we have the public portion on the resolutions only. If anybody is interested in commenting on any of the resolutions on the agenda, please come up to the microphone at this time.
Any from public for comments on resolutions only? Seeing none, we can close public comment.
Council, is there anything you'd like to remove from the consent agenda tonight?
I have 144? And we added 146 to that, right?
Can we
We'll do
remove that too, please?
Separate?
Thank you.
So just 144 and 146?
Okay.
Okay. On the consent agenda this evening, we have the Police Department Incident Report for the months of March and April 2022, Fire Department Incident Report for the month of April 2022, Resolution 141-05, 2022, Resolution authorizing advertisement for bids for reconstruction of Pennsylvania Avenue Phase 1 in Village Green, 142-05, 2022, Resolution authorizing a contract for professional services to de Blasio and Associates, PC, for construction phase engineering services for reconstruction of Pennsylvania Avenue Phase 1 for Village Green, 143-05, 2022, Resolution for the payment of bills, 145-05, 2022, Resolution awarding contract for transportation services for the City of Cape May.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
The only comment I'll make is just that 141 and 142 is on the Pennsylvania Avenue going now into Village Green, so I know there's a lot of people excited about that one, and Mike, I know you'll be working on that one a little bit, making sure we do a good job, so.
Absolutely.
All right.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
All right. Back to 14405-2022, resolution of the City Council of the City of Cape May in support of authorization of Sustainable Jersey 2022 EDF Climate Corps Program application.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I pulled just so we can get some clarity on this. It's something unusual. I think we haven't done it in the past.
Oh, it's just a general question on what it
I just
is?
want, yeah,
I'm sorry, I thought you were going to follow up.
No,
with-
I'm
okay, I
asking
got
for
you.
some clarification on what it is and what it involves.
A fellowship program, there's no cost to this, that the fellowship program, they would have a person checking on different areas where we can make improvements, and it's to work with the college, and there's no cost involved with this.
And they'll be giving us a report back on
Yes,
the
ma'am.
different areas?
Yes.
And how long is this supposed to run for?
I think just this term, just this, so this season, through, yeah, to the fall,
Through the fall?
yeah.
And this is a total grant, correct? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
And 14605-2022, resolution of the City Council authorizing a change fund for the beach tag department.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, I pulled this because I received it just as we sat down. I guess, is this just outlining what we currently do?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I guess I was a little
Yeah.
confused because we currently do this and we're just
Well-
outlining that in a,
Yeah, as with, when we do petty cash.
Petty
I
cash,
think
mhm.
It's in a resolution, right? And it dictates what's going on with that petty cash. We don't have a resolution that says what is going on here. It actually comes through as a, and you saw it in the bill
yeah,
pay.
yeah, I did.
And
Mhm.
bill pay, and it goes out. So there's nothing that actually says what is being done with that money. And I had talked with Leon and Neil about this before, about that we should solidify this
Okay,
and what is done with that.
okay, that's the only reason I pulled it. I just
Okay.
was a little unclear.
And it was, only reason why I didn't have it on here is because the bill didn't get to us until this afternoon.
It's, right, and it was part of the
Right.
superseded.
So that's
yes,
why this
the
wasn't,
bill
I would have
list.
had this in there sooner if we had received the bill in a timely manner.
Okay.
I remembered this.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Did I get a motion in a second? Yep. Okay.
Yes.
Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Any old business, council?
Oops, any old, I'm sorry. Got out of order here. Just one second.
No worries. Did we miss something?
Okay, any old business, council? Any new business, city solicitor,
Nothing to add, Mayor, thank you.
city manager?
Just on a sad note, Joe Picard, my friend, he just retired as our Public Works Director, is very sick. And I hope you just keep him in your prayers.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think we all echo those sentiments. He will be on our prayers. City clerk, any new business?
Yes, just one, Mayor. And the manager highlighted this earlier, but I wanted to bring some more attention to it, that water and sewer bills can now be paid online via credit and debit card or through a checking account. If you go to capemaycity.com, on the left-hand side of the screen, you click on the yellow utility payment tab, and that will bring you to the payment portal that you can sign up for and pay online. Okay?
Thank
Cool.
you. That's great. I know a lot of people were asking me about that. I
Mhm.
appreciate that, Lou. I know you're instrumental in that. Thank you.
And that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
The water lines?
Water flushing, I'm not aware of the schedule, but it's usually posted to our website, and I'm sure we can share it on social media, too.
Okay.
And you know, but talking about water, we probably also should go over the water, conservation that we have in place that the city does so that we can try to conserve water this year.
Yep.
Definitely. Okay. Councilmember Baldwin?
No.
Nothing?
Mm-mm.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
I just have, I have one item that somebody brought to my attention, and I thought was a really good idea, so I thought I'd share it with council. We had talked about at the last council meeting that the theater group would like to rent the church, but put on the addition to the church. Somebody came up with this great idea, and I thought I'd share it with council, that the CCA building, which is right there, could be moved towards the back to give them that access of, instead of putting an addition on, use the CCA building and make maybe a connection to the church. And that way, we're not spending the cost of putting on an addition. We preserve the church as it is, which is a simple building, and everybody gets their needs met. So I thought I'd share that with the group.
Mayor, if I may, one last item. We had discussions earlier today about possible summer hours, and you're going to poll the council.
Yeah. I'll do that. Okay, and Councilman Yeager?
I just want to mention, even though I missed the last Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting, they have requested, they're looking forward to coming to council and doing a presentation on
Oh, that's great.
bike, yes, bike activity in town and how we can make it safer, which is great. I mean, the
Good.
places, today it seemed like it's already been jumping. They hope to have an expert from Rutgers University assist in the presentation, so I'll get back to everybody, hopefully, again, for a midsummer presentation.
Cool. Okay. Oh, Councilwoman Baldwin, the summer concert series, do you know when the first one is offhand? Memorial Day weekend or something, I think.
There's going to be one on Memorial Day. It's going to actually be a beach concert.
On Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a free one, correct?
That's a free one. Yep. And
Summer
then,
concert series
yeah.
on the beach, be a lot of fun, Memorial Day.
And then-
Memorial Day? It'll be on the website.
Yeah, it's on the website as well as the summer concert series.
Maybe the clerk can look that up. Sorry to put you on the spot. And I do want to echo the sentiments and prayers for Joe Picard. He's in our hearts. I do let everyone know the solar panels were approved by HPC for the for City Hall above us here. Memorial Day ceremony, I believe 11 a.m. at the War Memorial at Soldiers and Sailors Park. And I do, again, want to compliment Public Works, all the hard work that they've been doing. It's looking great. The work on the bathroom on Ocean Street is definitely needed. So I'm glad to see that happening. The beach mats, I think, is really cool. And I know they started the crosswalks, repaving the crosswalks around the mall now, but looking at an expanded portion of the city. So that's all great news. And also, just to mention again, the work that was performed on the promenade, get up there, take a look at it. It really looks great. Much wider, much more room, and be great for the season. With that, we can open it up for public and
Got info on the free concert.
please.
AM Gold is the name of the band. It's Friday, May 27th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. behind Convention Hall on the beach. Okay.
Perfect. Friday, sounds like fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All
All right. Any public comment this evening? Mr. Roush?
Jules Rouse, 1010 New York Avenue. Relative to the ordinance that was introduced for first reading to modify the Tourist Bureau or Tourist Utilities funding from the occupancy tax, it would be a good idea if Leon had an opportunity to provide some background history, because this $1 million that is the initial payment is really a payment that is for the taxpayers. This whole system of occupancy tax goes back to the state government, was introduced really to give the shore communities the opportunity to have a way to offset some of the expenses that they were having for tourism on the coast. So the occupancy tax was really to supplement the municipal government with their expenses and their budget. When it came to Cape May's time, we chose the 2% rather than the allowable 3%. However, of that 2%, the $1 million off of the top was to be a credit, if you will, to the real estate tax budget. Now, if you choose, as the ordinance provides, to extinguish the funding and have it go directly to the city, the taxpayer in the community is going to lose $1 million in taxes.
Just to be clear, Mr. Roush, the current ordinance provides for funding for the tourism utility. It says the amount of occupancy tax received by the city pursuant to chapter blah, 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 that exceeds the sum of $1 million. So you don't start contributing to the tourism utility until you get over that $1 million in occupancy tax revenue. So we're not gutting the tourism utility by $1 million. That's what this amendment's actually doing, is giving the flexibility to the manager and CFO to say, look, I think we're a little light over here. I think we need to move some things around and not be handcuffed by, we can't start putting money into the tourism utility until we get over the $1 million. You just look at the full boat for the year, and then you're able to move things around during the budgetary process.
As I understand it, the anticipated revenue from the occupancy tax is going to approach $2 to $2.5 million.
And then the city then has the flexibility to allocate that in order to balance the budget.
My understanding of what was done in Cape May, in fact, Governor Christie even came down at that time. I was involved in this discussion back in that era. And this was for tax relief to the taxpayer. And you're taking that $1 million out of the relief. You got to remember that the convention hall is paid for by the taxpayer.
Mr. Roush, just to clarify, that's not what this does, and that's not what the current ordinance does. Like, just by way of an example, and there's actually an example in the current ordinance. The threshold amount for 2013 shall be $1,020,000. If the total occupancy tax in 2013 is $1,080,000, the amount contributed to the tourism utility fund is $60,000. So we're not, like, that's the $60,000 is what goes into the tourism utility. What council is actually doing is allowing more flexibility so that we're not, being handcuffed in the budgetary process or creating an issue for the taxpayers. It kind of allows the city to problem solve that with occupancy tax revenues. So in other words, I hear your concern, and this actually, I think, helps that rather than hurts it. The current ordinance handcuffs the city and the taxpayers by.
I don't see how the city is going to credit the taxpayers with $1 million plus 2% each year. That amount of money, it increases that $1 million by 2% each year, every year, if the occupancy tax total revenue exceeds that 2% increase.
Let me give you another example to kind of illustrate. I'm sorry for going over, but I just want to be clear on this, what this is doing and what this isn't doing. Let's say the tourism utility is short $100,000, and we only have $1 million in revenue for the occupancy tax. Well, pursuant to the current code, you can't take anything out from the occupancy tax.
I agree.
I don't know if that's the way you want it, but I think that for the city's perspective, I think you want to be able to say, if we have these revenues, to responsibly shift them around where appropriate through the budgetary process that occurs in public and is approved by council.
And can I add to that, just to answer the question? And hope this would be reflected in the record. It's been reflected already, but when we did the occupancy tax in coordination with MTRAC committee and those suggestions, we all said at this table that there's, frankly, exactly what you just said, that this is, right now we have Airbnb wasn't being taxed, okay, which is crazy because all the people renting in those houses are using city funded things like water and sewer and police and fire and all those things. So our intention certainly is to use this to help subsidize those public services that are being used by those businesses. So, I mean, that's the intention, and I just want to say that to you and to the public.
I just have one quick question. With this allocation money, does the tourism utility still stand on its own, though? Because we want to make sure that we're not funding something that should be standing on its own, like like the beach utility, right? The beach tags, it comes in, it funds itself. With this, are we giving money to a utility that can never fund itself, or not allowing it to fund itself because we're going to be funneling money into it?
The purpose in establishing the tourism utility is that it be self-funding and
Right.
cover itself. And there is that revenue stream built into it right now with whatever's over the $1 million in revenue for occupancy tax. This is just providing flexibility for the city to, allocate funds as needed. But the goal, that doesn't eliminate the goal of the tourism utility being self-funding and taking care of its own.
No, in fact, one of the commitments that was made back when the initial ordinance was adopted was that as soon as the tourist utility was what I'll call positive in terms of cash, that money would start to be spent to promote the hospitality industry as such as a result of the occupancy tax coming from the patrons to the hotels and the B&Bs. But I guess it's an understanding of what the initial intent was. It's my understanding that, again, I'll go back, that whatever comes in the way of occupancy tax that exceeds $1 million, the first $1 million goes as a credit to the taxpayer.
It goes to not the tourism utility. Anything over $1 million or whatever the 2%, we're using million because that was the beginning number and it's clean, but it was set up so that anything above on the occupancy tax, $1 million, would be carved out and put into the tourism utility.
Absolutely agree with you.
And that number, I think at the time it was established, was not anticipated to be the lion's share. That's why the example I think is 60 grand or something like that over. But with these changes, you're going to see probably an increase on that over the $1 million figure, and you don't want to be just sending that all into the tourism utility. I think you want to allow for some budgetary planning on that increased revenue and not just be locked into sending it to the tourism utility, I think was the concern.
What I would suggest, if I may, Mayor, is to ask our Chief Financial Officer to evaluate the comments that I've made, maybe talk to Leon. I don't know that anyone in the city government right now was involved in those initial discussions. So Leon is going to be the only one that can really indicate whether my interpretation is correct, and that this $1 million starts out as a benefit to the taxpayer, and if you decide to change it, you're going to be penalizing the taxpayer of $1 million.
Mr. Roush, we plan on having a full financial update, quarterly update. We just went through the budget process. Now we kind of get a financial update for the second bond readings on some of these, so the CFO will be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Charlotte? Chief, do you have to be somewhere, Chief? No, sir. Okay. All day. Charlotte, go ahead. I just wanted to make sure you didn't have to run.
Good evening. My name is Charlotte Todd, and I live at 1308 Cape May Avenue. My comments tonight center on the reporting of Council's meeting of May 3rd. This meeting reported by the Star and Wave newspaper, the topic, City-Owned Allen AME Church Property. Now, and some of its history, and the potential uses were discussed by Council and the public. After carefully reading the exchanges, I was really stunned, absolutely stunned, by a declarative statement made by the public that it has been the practice of nonprofit organizations to fund their own restorations. Now, I have lived in the city of Cape May for more than half a century, and I personally can quantify the nonprofits who have been given either direct or indirect financial assistance by the city of Cape May. However, tonight, I will simply relate my personal experiences with the Nature Center of Cape May, because I was there. So, after a three-year legal battle, the city of Cape May and the state Green Acres agencies became the owners of some property along Delaware Avenue. Discussions were held with the council at that time and the planning board to determine the best use for this newly acquired area. The conclusions were reached that were favorable for a nature center related to educational opportunities for children, and thus the beginning of the Nature Center of Cape May. Immediately, without hesitancy, the City of Cape May Council and Planning Board and city workers came to our assistance. There was an old building there, and they were there without a minute's hesitation to help us rehab that building so that we could begin classes with Rutgers University helping us. And this particular entity, before we were adopted, the Nature Center of Cape May, before it was adopted by New Jersey Audubon, was actually placed under the City of Cape May's Recreational Department, under Terry Brown's department, for nearly 3 years' help. So, I'd like to say that the city has been amazing, not only with the Nature Center of Cape May, but with many other nonprofits. And I do think that the restoration help that's needed for the AME Church should go forward. As neighbors here in Cape May, it's important to remind each other that we share personal history, because history is not all bricks and mortar. The East Lynn Theater Company certainly gets my vote for giving history great personal character analysis and tremendous heart with her performances. Many of their performances are themed with Victorian themes. They enliven the past events, adding to the charm of the city of Cape May. And perhaps attendees can come away with a glimpse of what it was like to really live in a seemingly less complex world. Thus, value systems aside, the city of Cape May has given this tremendous support for nonprofits. And hopefully, I hope they come up here and report to you and thank you personally for this help over the years. Not only you as a council, but many councils before you. I thank you for listening tonight.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. And you mentioned all your hard work on the Nature Center, and the city could never thank you enough for that hard work. And what I was thinking about when you said that was just kind of the planting of seeds that we, and I mean the city, over the decades, have worked with folks like you, where there was an initial investment, and look what it blossomed into. I mean, it's invaluable. So I thank you on behalf of the work that you did at the Nature Center and still do. So thank you. Thank you. Any other public, any other comments? Chief?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, City Manager, and the public that's here this evening. A couple things I want to go over real quick. I know it's late. However, I'd be remiss if I didn't make comment publicly about the incident from Sunday. First, I want to thank you, Mayor, for acknowledging both Mr. Harvey Williams as well as the victim from the accident on Lafayette Street in front of Elaine's Dinner Theater. As horrific and as traumatic that the event was that afternoon or on Sunday, to the residents, the visitors that were walking in the area at Elaine's, along Lafayette Street, and other communities that were affected by this, because this event just did not touch Cape May City. It touched Middle Township and Lower Township, which a lot of people are unaware of. I just want to clear some things up for the public and let them know that. We could have had as bad as it looked on Lafayette Street, this thing could have been very much worse. Unfortunately, one woman lost her life, and the area there was absolutely crowded with people. People were enjoying our city as they always do every weekend from Thursday to Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They're here. Through this, we've learned some things and some lessons that I think we're going to implement. Speaking with the manager's office today, my staff, we're going to make some changes. We can't control everything with speed and everything else. There's a lot of criticism going back and forth about what happened, what didn't happen. We're going to clear some of that up tomorrow with a press release on where we are with the investigation. And I just need the public and council and everyone to realize that the nature of an investigation is not to rush through it. It's to be methodical with our task. The men and women that work for you, that are work alongside of me, not for me, alongside of me, we're tasked with a very they had to dig deep. I had young men and women that were out there, the fire department, the police department. Yes, that's what we do. However, with the events that transpired the afternoon, May 15th, we dug deep. I applaud my staff, the fire department, the Cape May Fire Police, all the volunteers that jumped in. Cape May jumped in and did what Cape May does. Okay, everyone reacted as quickly as they could to a very large incident. This thing spread in Cape May over 4 blocks. It just wasn't right there where you saw it. It was all up and down. It just can't go unnoticed. So to the public, as the media repeats this conversation I'm having now, we will give as much information as we can through the next few days and weeks. This thing is going to take a few weeks to weed itself out and to let us properly give the information that the public needs. I promise you, from the police department and from me as the chief, we will give the public as much information as we can, lawfully and properly. My respect is to the families that were involved here, not only the family that was affected with the loss of their loved one, their mother, a wife, a sister was lost. There was a lot of people that were hurt in this accident. There was 2 or 3 other cars that were involved. The driver of the vehicle had a young child in the vehicle. That child is alive today. And if you were there on scene, you saw wires over top of vehicles. People questioned us why we didn't drag the people out of the car. Those wires were live. So, one of my officers, Bill Comley, along with Mike McMahon, Sergeant Gennaro, they were first on scene. We had 3 officers working that day. Okay, this is why I always stand up in front of you and say, I need more help. It's not an excuse. I'm just telling you where we were tasked this afternoon. Robert Elwell, Little Robbie Elwell, I call him Little Robbie Elwell, but Baroof, right? Officer Baroof quickly jumped into action. I mean, they put themselves in peril, crossing over oil and gasoline and live wires to rescue that little girl out of the car. I can't do nothing but just make sure that's known. So, like I said, to the public, we'll get through this. We'll make some changes. I can only imagine how worse it could be if it made it to Colliers. So, if there's any questions, please do not hesitate to call me. And please, the social media kind of drags along and this and that, and I will try to explain what happened on Sunday clearly and as best as I can legally, because everyone has rights in the process there. So just please, the public, give us the time to investigate this properly. It's what you pay us to do, and it's what we do methodically. So, any questions from council?
Chief, it's a tragedy, and everybody wishes they could do something differently, but your officers responded in seconds, not minutes. I think, like you mentioned, all the volunteer police officers, firefighters were all there immediately, and you did a wonderful job. And I was on scene later that evening to speak to Officer Elwell.
Yep.
And he's a young man, a professional police officer, but a young man, and to go through that, and it's traumatic, and they couldn't have handled it any better. So I just
Absolutely.
really
He's
commend
a
you.
young man. A lot of your Cape May Police Department is going to be a young force here come shortly. A lot of the people that we grew up with that aren't going to be here anymore. So our task, the command staff that I have under me, Captain Bobick, Lieutenant Walker, Lieutenant Mazza, Lieutenant Mazza, Walker, sorry, and all the sergeants and staff, we are going to prepare the future of this department to do the best that we can. Our job is, and we're tasked with, molding these young men and women. I've told my staff more than once time, all the new officers that come through us this summer, it's your job to prepare them for the future. The one thing I do want to make clear to everyone listening and the media, please cast this, there was no police pursuit. This was an erratic driver that came from out of town into our town. We were alerted from county dispatch quickly, just not in time to do more than we did. There's officers that struggle with what they could have done differently that day, putting themselves in peril, ramming. It's a lot of things. So I don't want to go into the graphics of that, but just that everyone knows the police department, the fire department, fire police, everyone, public works, that this thing went all night. Did what we could, and we'll continue to do that. Please just give us the time to properly vet it. Thank you.
Chief, and I don't want to sound crass and talk about the budget in regards to any of this, but we did, in this budget, hire 2 more police officers because
That will absolutely help.
We agree.
We're trying to get the
it's
staff
important.
numbers up. It'll help, absolutely. I don't knock that. This council, the manager's office, they are preparing me for the future.
Good.
That's absolutely what to do. And if I'll be crass, the meters are on, things are back and running, we're flowing. So we just need to make sure everyone knows that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next. Go ahead, Mr. Crowley.
Dennis Crowley, 806 Lafayette Street. I want to add a little bit to the discussion you had, and I want to be brief, but when MTRAC was examining the potential for revenue that would be available in the occupancy tax, it was pretty clear to us that the city should do it right away, and they did. The other thing was pretty clear to us, and you may recall in the presentations we made before the council, 2 of them at least, the PowerPoints, the famous Aaron Burke, 2 long PowerPoints. We raised this issue that when you raise the occupancy tax to its full potential, you're going to have a virtual tsunami of money that's going to be coming into the city. And when we looked at the ordinance that created the Tourism Authority, we realized that that was actually, in hindsight, a poorly written piece of legislation. And it was done so as a compromise when the Convention Hall, you all remember that, when Convention Hall was being built, everyone was concerned about who's going to pay for it. So the city created the tourism utility in the hopes of generating revenue and supporting that facility, with the proviso that no hall pays for itself and that the city will have to kick in. So the city at that point kicked in that $1 million threshold, as Chris explained. If that statute stays in effect, technically speaking, too much money is going to be generated for the hall. Too much money. Way too much money. And so the committee, as you also probably remember, recommended that you look at this issue, correct that statute, correct that ordinance, because you're not going to be able to function properly with the distribution of occupancy tax to the best ability, to the best purpose. And so we did recommend that, as you probably recall, changing that statute. When you open that ordinance, we also think you probably ought to look at the other piece of that ordinance, which is the creation of a tourism advisory committee. And if you read through the terms and text of that ordinance, it's probably the most ponderous and unworkable piece of legislation you'll ever see in your lifetime. It's never been enacted. It's never even been discussed to be enacted. It causes a tremendous amount of work for not a real clear purpose. So if you're opening up this statute to change the way those funds are distributed, you probably ought to take a look at that section of the statute too, because frankly, a committee can make an advisory committee anytime it wants to. It doesn't need to create that kind of a ponderous vehicle to approach something we already know full well we all are concerned with. So take a look at that section in the statute. It's right after the funding piece.
And your suggestion is to simply remove it?
I would remove it because, first of all, I would be hard, if I were the council, I'd be hard pressed to explain why we haven't done it. It's 12 years old.
And it hasn't been enacted?
And it hasn't been enacted. It's never even been discussed. So
Okay.
the point is, we can make good progress for the city without having that thing hanging around our neck. It's a law. It's the ordinance. And if we're not going to follow it, let's just get rid of it.
Understood.
Right?
Mr. Seeger?
Bill Seeger, Vermont Avenue. This has nothing to do with any individual subject matter. Just a point about process. Tonight we heard a presentation that lasted quite a while at an open city council meeting. Now, the subject matter was on the agenda, but I don't know if council was aware of the depth and the length and how many witnesses, et cetera, were going to be involved in that agenda item. I believe, and I don't want to tell you how to do your business, and first of all, I as a citizen, cherish the opportunity to have access to my community's governing body. But operationally, sitting out in the audience, I would hope that you had an opportunity to review before you put someone on the firm agenda, not general public comments at the end, but an agenda item that you have a perception idea of what the agenda subject matter and length is going to be ahead of time in order to earn your right to be an agenda item. I'm not so sure that was done this evening. Maybe it was. But the process of the communication tonight, not the content, but the process, just seemed out of place in this environment. I also believe if someone comes to council and they have a specific subject matter that they want to present, and they say, okay, it's going to take me 10, 15 minutes to talk about this, and here's my agenda outline, and you have a standing committee, even if it's just an advisory committee or a commission or a board that deals with that subject matter, that you consider directing it to that committee for initial review. And thereby they can either try to address it, and this one's unique because I know the history of personalities involved. But there should be a process of how you move things through the governing body so the governing body can process things and deal with them in a manageable way. Thanks.
I agree with you. Any other questions or comments from the public? Okay, seeing none. Motion to adjourn? I'm sorry? Oh, I'm so sorry. This is what last council poll issue. I know we got an email today. I know the deputy mayor does have a conflict. I don't know if there's a different time. We're considering summer, I think June, July, August, is that right? Earlier hours for council meetings, same day, Tuesday, but wanted to poll everyone to see if they would be available. Shane's not here. He did say, though, that he was available anytime on Tuesdays. But
I can't get here till like 5:30 at the earliest.
5:30. Okay. 5:30? Do we want to make it 5:30?
I'm good with that. It's,
I'm okay
It
with
it wouldn't be the first time the city's had kind of summer hours that were a little shorter. And I just want to make sure the public does understand, some of the staff here starts at 7, 8 a.m. and, are here till 9, 10. So it's a long day, but, hey, we're going to carry on the business. That's very important to the public, obviously. But if during those 3 months, it would make sense, it's fine with me.
I'm just making sure that Shane,
Go ahead. He said okay.
make sure Shane's
He
okay
did.
with that. 'cause
Yeah,
I know
he said
does.
okay.
I mean, for a half an hour. I'm just saying for that half an hour, has everything already been advertised?
I mean, I can re-advertise very easily.
Okay.
I just know we usually meet at 5 o'clock for closed sessions, so I don't know if you guys plan on
I
have a
couldn't do
closed
that.
session.
Then I couldn't do the, closed session would have to be afterwards then.
Could you still meet at 5 o'clock if we had a closed session?
Yeah.
Then I think we keep it at 6 yeah.
I mean, you
Now,
can
you have
always,
to understand, there's a couple meetings that we're already starting at 1 in August. The one for National Night Out.
National
there's
Night
one
Out.
That's
that
1
starts at
o'clock.
1.
So how many are you really looking at?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not many.
All right, so no change. We got it, council members got to be able to attend. All right. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful
Time
evening.
is 9:09.